Ujamaa, I want to Ujamaa with you. Ujamaa, 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 and I hope you like Ujamaa too. All right, fam. Woo! We're going to read some more of this Nyerere Ujamaa. We're going to read some more Ujamaa. Before we get started, I realized I didn't tell you guys that I'm an author myself. So before we get started, I do want to remind you all that I also write books. This is the Book of Power. You know, we're going to make sure some people join in. But this is the Book of Power. You can get it on Amazon. It's pretty much only on Amazon, but this would be the way to do it. Outside of that, I do want you guys also to know that I'm part of a podcasting network called KWAZ Radio. There's like 5-7 different programs on it, so make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you subscribe to the KWAZ Radio network. But today we're going to read the Arusha Declaration, and it's pretty long, so we're going to try to jump right into it. But appreciate it. Appreciate you guys joining me for today, and let's have some fun, right? And if you guys like that solo, let me know. I think it flows. I think it flows. All right. So the Arusha Declaration. So the declaration was discussed and then published in Swahili. This revised English translation clarifies ambiguities which exist in the translation originally issued, right? So the Arusha Declaration and TANU's policy of socialism and self-reliance. So part one, the TANU Creed. So the policy of TANU is to build a socialist state. The principles of socialism are laid down in the TANU Constitution, and they are as follows. Whereas TANU believes that all human beings are equal. Now, again, we really do want to come into this. I mean, you know, like this is, all right, so we read Chinwezu last week. Chinwezu says, you know what, Nyerere kind of goes into, let's talk about Africa. You know what I mean? He might have started off with this all human being stuff, but he eventually goes into, let's talk about Africa. So I do think that we're going to have to look at life from a African standpoint. And we're going to have to find a rationale or a reason for looking at life in an African standpoint. But so far, what the TANU, and that's like the government, that's like the political party in Tanzania, or Tanganyika, at the time when it says, A, all human beings are equal. B, that every individual has a right to dignity and respect. C, that every citizen is an integral part of the nation and has the right to take an equal part in government at local, regional, and national level. Now, look, this is what's really important. I'm telling you this right now. Look, for those of you who want to repatriate, those of you who are not in Africa, those of you who are citizens in Africa, you have this already. Those of you who are not citizens in Africa, you want something like this, okay? Only so that you, when you get citizenship, you can participate, okay, in government at a local, regional, national level. I'll tell you this right now. A lot of countries in Africa, if I go, I'm a good citizen, I make money, I get money, whatever, right? I can't participate in government. Partly, sometimes people have a bias against your not being of the same nationality. And not the sense that, oh, I don't like your nationality, as much as they like their own nationality. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so much, oh, I don't like Igbo. I don't like Igbo. It's that I want a Yoruba representative. You know what I mean? So that's a thing. So what you really want realistically is you want like an ambiance where it's like, I don't care if you're Yoruba or Igbo, I just want to see your merits and your deeds. And then, like, you know, if you participate fairly against the next man, and the next man is the next man or woman, obviously, but the next person is good, then, like, you know, who cares if you lose? But of course, if the other person is like, you know, like, since I have no intention of going to Nigeria, let's say the next person is Buhari, right? You know, so anybody who's trying to spy on me, you know, you can strike Nigeria off the list. You know, you're like, let me set up an ambush for this motherfucker. You know, yeah, you can set up Nigeria. But anyway, speaking of which, I gotta change my tonality. Tanzan's here. Morning, Tanzan. Tanzan, did you hear me singing? Did you hear me singing last time, the Ujamaa song? Because if you didn't hear that, then, you know, you didn't rewind enough. All right. That every citizen has the right to freedom of expression, of movement, of religious belief, and of association within the context of the law. So, has a right to freedom of expression, of movement, of religious belief, and association within the context of the law. Again, like, you know, religious belief is tough, but, you know, I'm kind of coming around to it. I hate the Abrahamic faiths. I hate it. But I'm coming along to it in the sense that if they're not bothering me, I'm kind of a little bit cooler with it, you know? But of course, like I hate like they're Aryan. They're Aryan. And people don't know what I'm talking about, but if you study the Aryans, you get it. That every individual has a right to receive from society protection of his life and property held according to law, protection of property, which is important. That every individual has a right to receive a just return for his labor, that's good pay. That all citizens together possess all the natural resources of the country and trust for their descendants. So this is actually a pretty interesting one. Who owns the resources in your community? And it's like, well, all the citizens. But again, this is really a tough one. This is a really tough one to justify. If anybody has any questions on that, please feel free. Let's go look at the what's going on. That all citizens together possess all the natural resources of the country. Yeah. What can I say about that? Natural resources. Okay. Yeah. So like, let's say there's a diamond mine, right? A diamond mine. Okay. You sell the diamonds to another country. Let's say you're in Rwanda, or since we're talking about Tanganyika, you have the diamonds of Tanganyika, right? And you want to sell them to Rwanda. Okay, Rwanda then gives you back, let's say it gives you back gold, or let's say it gives you back, all right, let's just say cobalt, whatever, right? It got cobalt from Congo, whatever, right? It gives you back cobalt. Who does the cobalt go to? You understand? The person who made the deal, the person who found the diamonds, the people who found the diamonds. Like, who does the cobalt go to? You know what I mean? Now you could say it just goes to the government. Okay, all right, but then like again, like the incentive motive, like it goes to why am I going deep into the mines if I can get the revenue from that without going, Now, of course, it really is a matter of receive a just return for their labor. So that's a real question. But why I say this is I want to say that there's like a logistics to economics that while we can broadly make discussion on, we also have to like very particularly analyze as well, you know? So most people would say your wages should be in proportion to your expertise and your labor, right? They should be in proportion, but of course that's going to inherently create that sort of inequality. And I think that's like one of the things that realistically, really comes to the fore, you know. And actually, that's why I'm reading this Adam Smith. I think it's actually a decent book. I mean, I'd probably cut through some of it, but it's a decent book. That in order to ensure economic justice, the state must have effective control over the principal means of production. So, in order to ensure economic justice, the state. So now you got the state must control effective control over the principal means of production. That is the responsibility of the state. That is the responsibility of the state to intervene actively in the economic life of the nation so as to ensure the well-being of all citizens and so as to prevent the exploitation of one person by another or one group by another and so as to prevent the accumulation of wealth to an extent which is inconsistent with the existence of a classless society. So this is like kind of like forcing socialism by having the governments run the industry, right? Which is not a bad idea. But it also, like, what happens is that you might have a bureaucracy that also does not it's not going to be as involved in the industrial process. You know what I mean? So what I mean is that like you might have something running and then nobody else is going to like innovate on it because in order to innovate on something, part of the ways how you innovate on something is A, you're involved in the process, and or B, you just have a good idea, like you notice something from consuming it. But the thing with a bureaucracy is that they're usually not really involved in the process. You know what I mean? So like for instance, the government is not really intimately involved in like industry, You know, they're not like manufacturing cars. Like the politicians are not there manufacturing cars. Sure, they can get a report on the manufacture of cars, but it's really a question of, you know, maybe you could say, look, the laborer behind the car making process could have an idea, or the business owner can have an idea, but the idea that the politician would is really where it's like, well, maybe not. Just like I don't have a car, and so like the idea that I would, I mean, I could have an idea on a car, but then like who knows, you know? And I think that those of you who might know this cartoon is called The Simpsons. Simpsons had this joke where Homer Simpson was the brother of. Actually, why am I talking about The Simpsons? Let's go on. Well, I mean, all right. Let me just tell the joke. So the joke was Homer Simpson. He's like this idiot, and his brother is this rich person. And I think Homer Simpson complains about the cars or something, and his brother owns a factory. So his brother asks Homer to design a car, you know, for the average man. And then Homer just designs this stupid piece of waste that bankrupts his brother, right? And his brother, you know, curses him and, you know, disappears into the background. You know, it's a sitcom, so you're supposed to start off where you ended. You know, no relationship with the brother, therefore no relationship with the brother. No relationship with the brother in the beginning, no relationship with the brother at the end, right? So it's just a long joke to reason or rationale why this guy disappears from his life again. Anyway, but the joke is that yeah, like you ask the average Joe Schmo, you know, how do you design like the best car? And he's gonna put these rockets and these whistles and these bells and whistles, and it's like, yeah, no, you know, that's but now that's a risk that a company or a factory would take, you know, producing 1,000 of these. But then who should that risk fall to? You know what I mean? Like, who should pay for a business taking that risk? And if it's like, well, the people should, the government should, then so be it. But that's realistically where a lot of people draw the line, as to say, well, are you saying that we're going to take a collective risk on some individual's stupid idea? You know? And so I think that's just a little more insight into what kind of economic conversation we want to have. Tantan says, yes, I heard you singing. That's because I replayed it and caught up. Doing the right thing. Ah, okay. You didn't say anything about it. You didn't say, yeah, man, a Ujamaa song. Let's make a CD. All right. Tantan says, bureaucracy is not conducive to innovation. Yeah, like usually not. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible. It's just very unlikely. Bobby E. Wright says, good morning, brother Oni, and the chat. Good morning, Bobby E. Wright. Although, why you say good morning? I'm kind of like as something sad. Although there's a sister who did have trouble. So obviously there's always something sad going on, right? Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, are you suggesting that there should be an intelligentsia to figure these things out? I'm trying to make out what you mean. Intelligentsia for what? For creating an economy? I think yes. Are you saying for business, for like a bureaucracy? The thing with the bureaucracy thing is that you got to ask yourself who is going to innovate. You know, one of the reasonings behind capitalism is the idea that you innovate, that they innovate well. And actually, I think it was Mr. Untouchable, so he's a good brother. He says he was in Cuba or what have you, and he's like, when he visited there, like maybe 5 years ago or something, it was like he went into a time portal to 1960. You know, like the socialist government does run itself, but the reality is that they're not necessarily innovating anything new. You know what I mean? Like, sure, if they focus on medicine, they can innovate new medicine. But the idea that they are going to like create the internet and create video games and like the government is going to create the internet and create video games and create Facebook and create this and so on and so forth, right, is just very unlikely. And if you and like the other thing about it too is that, you know, when you really when you look at the rapid advance of Wazungu, and you compare it kind of to a lot of like let's say particularly like the village existence, like the village can kind of be in stasis for like 100 years. You know what I mean? Like it could really be in stasis for 100 years, and it wouldn't even be anything like anything odd about it. Now we wouldn't like you wouldn't really complain because you're just gonna be in the village, but the reality is that if you're looking to compete on a global market or you're looking to make global exchanges of a manufacturing basis, right? You can't necessarily just be in stasis for 100 years. You know what I mean? Like Rip Van Winkle, type stuff. Um, yeah, like it's kind of like that Rip Van Winkle kind of stuff. So Trigger Happy Plus says, I see what you mean. Then I think that's why, like, we have to look at these East Asian countries. They kind of had an answer for this. Look for China and North Korea. They first encourage business. Yeah. China. Like I feel like, yeah. I mean, like it's not to say that you can't have people who innovate. It's just a matter of is innovating and taking those risks a priority, and then also who does the risk punish? You know what I mean? Because if the risk punishes you, then like you technically the reward like you should also be rewarded. You know what I mean? Like if you're just punished and you're not rewarded, then I just wouldn't even take you just wouldn't even take the risk. You know, one of the incentives, like for instance, one of the incentives for that guy, the brother who makes the water guns, right, is that he could get rich. You know, like he can say, you know what, let's make water pistols. Let's make guns that just shoot out water, right? The technology exists. And the reality is that like that's a stupid idea. You know, it's like, oh, well, if some kid is hot during the summer, they should just go under a tree or something, go under a tree, or they should just grab a hose, and it's like, no, let's create plastic guns that shoot water. Kids will like that. And it's like, no, that's stupid. Now, if you're in a bureaucracy and somebody comes up with this idea, although nobody would, because like you're sitting up in the office, you don't give a shit. But like you come up with this idea, then you do all the research and design. It probably costs you like $500,000 to make several prototypes. Few prototypes fail, and then finally one works. You're able to eject water from a gun. Yeah. And then like now you're saying now the idea is that in a socialist or in an economy where the production is owned by the government, one, you're not going to turn your factories into plastic gun production, but two, even if you did and the item flops, right, because people are like, that's a stupid idea, then you just wasted $500,000 of the public fund, which isn't that much money for a public fund, but still, it's like we're on the other end. But it's like it's a really complicated question of would people really innovate if everything is kind of set in stone per se. And it's like you kind of see the village life where it's like, no, they never made water guns. You know what I mean? Like they never made guns. Like they never made the guns. Like it was like, what do you need to make guns for? Like if I want my food, I'll just make spears. I'll just make a spear. Trigger Happy says, oh no, sorry. So he says, in order to innovate, and they did their own thing after the innovation. Yep. Another thing, though, some would say that issue with Cuba is more so because economic sanctions. Do you think that has a contribution to their lack of innovation, or is Cuba lacking something too? No, I mean, I don't think sanctions are what would stop you from innovating. What would stop you from innovating is, I believe, like private incentive, private incentive to become rich. Like the guy who makes the water guns, like you could technically say African Americans are under a sanction. You know what I mean? Like you could technically say that, but like it doesn't mean that African Americans aren't going to innovate if they believe that they can get some sort of profit. You know what I mean? Which they can. Like a lot of Black Americans can get profit, and so they do. Like apparently the guy who makes there's a black American who was a part of the designing team. He wasn't the only. He was like the head designer for making cartridges for video games. You know what I mean? And so, but like he was like one of a whole team, but like a whole team of white folk. He was like the only black person there. But I mean, it's okay to give him credit for it. But either way, yeah, the reason why he designed this cartridge was because his company that hired him understood that there was a competitive gaming market, and therefore they could make a lot of money if they can just make game cartridges, Like, if they can make port, like they could innovate on the game market. So yeah, I don't think that's yeah. So I don't think it's because of the sanctions. I think it's, if you know that you can, if you know you're in a competitive market and you can outcompete the next person based off of doing it better than them, then that will incentivize you to innovate. Whereas if the government kind of, like, if the government kind of just provides all the entertainment, it's every year it's Casablanca or whatever, then that's it. You're just gonna watch Casablanca. Like, if you know you can't get into the market, then you wouldn't even participate. Like, you wouldn't innovate for the market because there'd be no, like, there's no incentive to innovate for the market. It just works. It's like when you want to go hunting in a hunter gatherer economy. There's no reason to make a better spear if the spear works. You know what I'm saying? But that's a good economy to be in, no less. Because, like, that's really a classless society, right? But it's a good economy to be in. But it's like, yeah, it's like, it's good, but I don't know if, like, some people just wouldn't take it at this point, Now, therefore, the principal aims and objects of TANU shall be as follows: to consolidate and maintain the independence of this country and the freedom of its people. So I'll try to read through this until L and then go back to the comments. So, guys, just keep writing and then we can go back to it. Now, therefore, the principal aims and objects of TANU shall be as follows: A, to consolidate and maintain the independence of this country and the freedom of its people. B, to safeguard the inherent dignity of the individual in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. C, to ensure that this country shall be governed by a democratic socialist government of the people. D, to cooperate with all political parties in Africa engaged in the liberation of all Africa. So that's good, And you see, he also says Africa. Although, again, you do want to limit to Black Africa, but it's good. It's realistically, you want to political party. I like whoever copied this, put an asterisk here, because they're on it. They're on it. All right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, your bookmarks kind of say stuff about you. So make sure you guys do this, All right. E, to see that the government mobilize. I actually like that I use the word bookmark because, some people might say, no, that's not a bookmark. But it really is the mark of a book, like a marking in a book. So it's pretty funny. All right. So anyway, E, to see that the government mobilizes all the resources of this country towards the elimination of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Right. So again, poverty. Can you eliminate poverty? Yeah, I guess maybe. All right. So F, to see that the government actively assists in the formation and maintenance of cooperative organizations. So, and that's another thing. You want the state to assist in the formation and maintenance of cooperative organizations. Now, look at this. I want you to pay attention to this too, because this is one of the issues I have with the Western world, right? In the Western world, the government is actively combating the formation and maintenance of cooperative organizations. And it's supposed to, if those organizations are for you. Right? Now, of course, they do assist in the formation and maintenance of their racial groups' cooperative organizations. But this is what I'm telling you, the big difference between being in the West and being in the or at the origin, at the center, right? When you're in the center, when you're in Africa, you can possibly get state assistance, and state assistance is probably the best thing you can get. Okay, what's his name? Kamal Kambon, I think his name is. No, Obadeli Kambon. Obadeli Kambon is like, his father was like on C-SPAN talking about, I want to, like, I think we should exterminate white people. Radical shit, right? Obadeli Kambon is his son. Now, if he were in America, he would be more ostracized than me or something, right? Particularly because his father or whatever. Or like, give an example, Malcolm X's grandson up and killed, like harassed by the police. Like, this guy, like, literally, no cap. Malcolm X's grandson was arrested for jaywalking. I don't even know what jaywalking is, but I think it's something along the lines of crossing the street outside of crossing at the light, So instead of crossing in the crosswalk, just kind of crossing in the middle of the street, police officers saw Malcolm X's grandson and arrested him for that. Literally. That's the state going against you. Whereas Obadale Kambon, as radical as he is, this guy is speaking on Ghanaian news stations. And he's a professor in Ghana. A professor in Ghana. Like, the state is like, oh, yeah, okay. You're about black people? Okay, cool. In Africa. Whereas in America, it's like, oh, you're about black people? Okay, well, you're a criminal. What's my crime? Did you walk across the street wrong? I mean, technically, but like, who cares? Well, you're going to jail now. There's a law in the books that says you can't. Yeah, you gotta pay attention to this. I want an asterisk here too. All right, to see that wherever possible, the government itself directly participates in the economic development of the country. H, to see that the government gives equal opportunity to all men and women, irrespective of race, religion, or status. So, all right, well, minus the race part, you do want this. You do want this. But I mean, I get why he would say race. Like, again, you had white people in the government at the time, and like white people in the country at the time, so you couldn't necessarily not, like, basically race would be like if you're in America and you say race, where it's like if white people are in power, then you're like, hey, I want you to not discriminate on race, you know? Like, you can't say, I think you should discriminate against white people, because it's just like, wait, what? You know? But I mean, like, technically, you know, today. All right. I, to see that the government eradicates all types of exploitation and intimidation, discrimination, bribery, and corruption. J, to see that the government exercises effective control over the principal means of production and pursues policies which facilitate the way to collective ownership of the resources of this country. So let me read that again. I just kind of read it too quickly. I'm trying to rush to L so I can look back at the comments. To see that the government exercises effective control over the principal means of production. So, again, you want government-owned business, and pursues policies which facilitate the way to collective ownership of the resources of the country. So, again, like, and this is the question of what does collective ownership mean? You know, if I want to use the trees for lumber, and you want to use the trees for paper, and somebody else wants to just preserve the trees, right? Who decides what happens with the trees? Now, you can, so the quasi-socialist solution is, well, the government decides. But here's the thing, the government is either going to decide for lumber, the government's either going to decide for the forest, or the government's either going to decide for the paper. And then we all bear the cost of whichever decision. Now, of course, that's probably, like, that's not to say that the individual ownership is better, because again, it's just the same exact thing. You know, there's going to be one or all three choices. But it is, it is a question of what does collective ownership mean in a modern economy? You know, because what we usually compare it against is the agrarian lifestyle, wherein, you know, collective ownership of the land, there's only one thing you could do with the freaking land. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, yeah, let's plant some stuff. You know, let's plant corn. You know what I mean? Or not corn, I guess, but, you know, let's, whatever it is, right? But that's it. Like, yeah, let's plant fufu or whatever. I don't know. But if it becomes a little more complicated, like, you can have the trees for tree houses. You could have the trees for, you know, for a celebration. You could have the trees to make apples or something. I don't know. Then it just becomes, well, how do we decide? Now, I'm not saying that individual ownership is better. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this is, like, realistically the logistics that we have to look into. K says to see that the government cooperates with other states in Africa in bringing about African unity. That's power. And then L, to see that the government works tirelessly towards world peace and security. All right, so at least I gave a pause so that just in case somebody clips this, they're going to be like, see, Oni likes the United Nations. No. All right, through the United Nations organization. So, yeah, no. But anyway, I get why he's saying it, but no. Nope. All right, let's see what the comments are like. So, Trigger Happy says, so basically competition stimulates innovation. Okay, so basically competition stimulates innovation. If we can figure out a way to simulate it and control it in a particular manner, could be the formula. Exactly. Like, you do want to take into account the merits of competition. You know, like for instance, like I said, you could also have like 90% taxation rate, so that even if you are competing, you still give like 90%. You know, like you still lose 90%. You know, you could be like you'll be like, you know what I mean. Like you might make $1 million, but you just paid $99 million in taxes. You know what I mean? So you like, you know what I mean? Like it's like you can do like you can do that. Like that is in capitalism. So for those of you who don't know, like during Franklin Delano Roosevelt's time, like with the early income tax, like income tax did go up to 90%. Anyway, Trigger Happy says, yeah, I see what you mean. It's a matter of evolving with one's environment versus more rugged competition that pushes you to grow in a sense. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I mean, like, if everything's going smoothly, you know, like what's the point of coming up with a new television show if everybody's already entertained from the old television show? You know? Or what's the point of coming up with a new formula if everybody's entertained with a new formula? Like it's like back in the 90s, reality television came through, and it was like, boom, bam, you know? And like, would that really be a thing if your government owned media production? You know what I mean? Like, it would just produce the same thing over and over again. Like, why would it change anything? Because again, everything comes at a real cost. Trigger Happy is telling everybody peace. Bit of Medicine saying peace. So peace to Better Medicine. Make sure you guys check out Bit of Medicine as well as Tanzan and everybody else who has anything to watch. Trigger Happy says, glad Nyerere changed from the world peace stuff. Yeah. This and Tanzan says, yes, world peace stuff is embarrassing. But like, again, like I get it. If you're like, you have to mind your tongue when you're the dominated population. You know what I mean? It's like I said, if I'm Nigeria, I'm not gonna be all fuck Buhari right in front of, you know, I forgot the name of the place, but right in front of his house, you know? Or if I do that, that's fine. But, you know, obviously if I don't mind my tongue, I'm just gonna lose it. You know what I mean? So it's like realistically, like when you're in the dominated position, you do articulate yourself in a way that that dominated people articulate themselves. Now, whether you really believe it or whether you don't is another thing. And of course, you know, one of the issues is this, that you go into the room and you say all this stuff, and some people do believe it. Some people do resonate with it. And then when you try to break away from it, people are going to like break away from you. You know what I mean? But that's like a risk you have to take. Marcus Garvey, on his part, he was like, no, like he was like, publicly say this kind of stuff, but privately make sure every child knows the tragedy of white injustice. So the tragedy of white injustice is this poem that Marcus Garvey has that kind of goes in on like what white people did around the world and how bad they are, basically. I actually republished it in the Pro-Black Compendium, for those of you who don't know. But it's also like available as a separate book. So that's a thing. All right. So part 2, the policy of socialism. So we got through part 1. Policy of socialism. So he says, A, absence of exploitation. So a truly socialist state is one in which all people are workers and in which neither capitalism nor feudalism exists. It does not have two classes of people, a lower class composed of people who work for their living and an upper class of people who live on the work of others. In a really socialist country, no person exploits another. Anyone who is physically able to work does so. Every worker obtains a just return for the labor he performs, and the income derived from different types of work are not grossly divergent. Right. So, all right. So let's just go here. Right. All right. So let's just go here. So he's like, so what I want to say, he says, look, you're going to have just workers. There's no owners. Okay. And that sounds good. Right. If you're able to work, you work, and you're going to get good pay, but that pay is not going to differ grossly from another person, right? Which is, you know, and this is a thing that you constantly hear black people saying. So it's good to hear Nyerere say it. The thing about it is, and this is the reason why I wanted to read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nation, is because essentially we can always talk about what we envision as a good economy, but it's also a matter of just studying what other economies are doing, you know, or what other economic studies are. So like I could tell you guys this, in my book Zubiri, there was no wages. People did not have any wages. You kind of just like lived. You know what I mean? You lived and you worked, but you didn't get any pay. You just did the work that you could do, right? Which I think is like, even after reading all this Adam Smith, I still think it's practical. I just want to I'm just gonna read a little further, obviously. Now, what I would say about this is, you have the surgeon and you have the janitor. And then, so what is not grossly divergent about that? If the surgeon goes through 20 years of schooling, okay? All right, so one of the reasons why you would pay somebody more for going through schooling is because the schooling costs them. Usually it costs them financially. So if the surgeon, for instance, goes through schooling that costs him $100,000 of training, right? It's not going to be free. I mean, it could be free for if it could be free, but it's not free. He has to go through really in-depth courses. He needs to get a laptop. He needs to go to labs. He needs to have live bodies to operate on, like whether they're chickens or cows or whatever. You have to purchase those cows to do surgery on. He has to have a professor to teach him, so on and so forth, right? All right, let's pretend. Let's just pretend he only gets paid 50% more than the janitor, right? The janitor does not need that much training. I mean, sure, you could say, well, how's he gonna freaking sweep on the moon? He needs to learn that. Sure, maybe, but realistically, like, I know nobody's saying that. But realistically, you don't need that much training to be a janitor. I mean, yeah, you could dump a bucket, so on and so forth. You probably could use a week's training. A surgeon might need, if you're optimistic or if you're pessimistic, I don't know. You could do a month's training to be a janitor, right? 5 days a week or for a month to be a proper janitor. Sure. You can't do that with a surgeon, and you need a lot more expensive things. Like, you need actual medical devices. You need to have a pig to stitch open and stitch closed. You need to do tons of reading, tons of professors, tons of testing, tons of disqualification. That said, even if the education were free, right? Even if the education were free, you spend 4 years, or actually 8 years, studying to be a surgeon, and the other person spends 4 weeks to be a janitor. And then you're telling me that the person who spent 8 years should get paid only 50% more than the person who spent 4 weeks. And so that's one of the issues I'd say that comes with the industrial economy or the modern economy, is that realistically, like, labor kind of doesn't equalize. Now what happens is that realistically in the West, the surgeon actually pays for their education, and they get in debt over their education, so they have to pay it back. Whereas a janitor doesn't have to pay back as much. Like, sure, they had a month's training, but they pay it back pretty quickly. Whereas the surgeon, having to pay off like the other person starts off $100,000 in debt and 8 years behind in terms of earning wage, and so you would pay them more in order that they can, in order to actually reward them for their labor. So on the one hand, you're paying them more because they have a higher cost. On two, they're also delaying their income, right? And then three, because you actually feel like what they're doing is valuable. Let's just put it that way. And that's a good summary. I'm telling you guys, like some of you don't appreciate these commentary, but that's actually a good summary. So let's see. Damn, nobody even said anything about it. All right. Trick Happy says, gotta be two-faced to your enemy. I think because you guys rewinded or something, and you're just like, whatever. All right, but that's a good summary of the economic division, and that's something that you would want to consider when we're talking about real economics. Hopefully, I can put it in a book. Although technically, there was some of that was in Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, where he points out that kind of stuff. So that's a pretty interesting conversation. I'm actually going to make a note. So we're just going to put note. Hopefully, like, in my next book, I can articulate on this just for the sake of that, just to articulate on it, because I think that that kind of a description of why there's like an economic, of why there's a financial differential does need to take place among our people. But anyway, all right. So let's go on. In a socialist country, the only people who live on the work of others and who have the right to be dependent upon their fellows are small children, people who are too old to support themselves, the crippled, and those whom the state at any one time cannot provide with an opportunity to work for their living. Oh yes, that's another thing I wanted to say. So what happens with this is that why there might be an upper class versus a lower class is that the upper class could have worked and saved their money. You know what I mean? Save their money and then decided to make their money work for them. And that's like realistically another aspect to it. Hold on a second. Note in Arusha Declaration. What time am I at? Like 25 minutes? I want to just 25 minutes? Oh no, it's not 25 minutes. Let's say it's 35 minutes. Exploitation and wealth differentials. Yeah, so I just wanted to like make a note as to what I should include in my next book, just because I feel like it's going to be useful for us as a people to, because like not everybody's going to read Wealth of Nations or what have you, and obviously not everybody's going to read my book, but you still want to give your attempt to inform the masses on things. So Tanzania is a nation of peasants and workers, but it is not yet a socialistic society. It still contains elements of feudalism and capitalism with their temptations. These feudalistic and capitalistic features of our society could spread and entrench themselves. B. The major means of production and exchange are under the control of the peasants and workers. To build and maintain socialism is essential that all the major means of production and exchange in the nation are controlled and owned by the peasants through the machinery of their government and their cooperatives. So to build and maintain socialism, it is essential that all the major means of production and exchange in the nation build and maintain socialism. It is essential that all the major means of production, all the industry and exchange in the nation are controlled and owned by the peasants through the machinery of their government and their cooperatives. Okay, so the idea is that everything is controlled by the peasants, right? Further, it is essential that the ruling party should be a party of peasants and workers. Okay. The major means of production and exchange are such things as land, forests, minerals, water, oil and electricity, news media, communications, banks, insurance, import and export trade, wholesale trade, iron and steel, machine tools, arms, motor cars, cement, fertilizer, and textile industries, and any big factory on which a large section of the people depend for their living, on which provides essential components of other industries, large plantations, and especially those which provide a raw material essential to important industries. Some of the instruments of production and exchange which have been listed here are already owned or controlled by the People's Government of Tanzania. Okay, so now it's Tanzania. So it's interesting. I think he might have added this after all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. You want, saying individual ownership or corporate ownership might not be a good thing, although I think a large part of our opposition to capitalism realistically is the foreign control, not so much that like an individual control per se, but it's whatever, who cares. Like, again, you could form your state however you want. I'm just like giving you a rationale outside of that. So C, the existence of democracy. A state is not socialist simply because its means of production and exchange are controlled or owned by the government, either wholly or in large part. For a country to be socialist, it is essential that its government is chosen and led by the peasants and workers themselves. If the minority government of Rhodesia or South Africa controlled or owned the entire economies of their respective countries, the result would be a strengthening of oppression, not the building of socialism. True socialism cannot exist without democracy also existing in the process, in the society. So essentially he's saying, government control, like sometimes we compare government control with what the Westerners are doing and not really recognizing that the government can be elected by the people, so like we might be like, oh, Nancy Pelosi running General Motors, right? But like maybe Nancy Pelosi in a real democracy wouldn't be a 50-year politician. What I can say is democracy is actually really, really difficult without capitalism per se, because yeah, like democracy is like a social weakness. Obviously, on a community level, you could have like fair elections, but like you're talking about on a national level, like who's gonna win in a national election or a statewide election of 50 million people? Now, granted, Tanzania is much smaller than America, but still, like who's going to win when 10 million people are voting in an election? It's probably going to be the richest person, or the person who has the best political campaign, who reaches the most amount of people. Because how do you reach 10 million people? You know what I mean? How do you get 10 million? How do you get 6 million people to come out of their house and vote for you? Like, how do you do that? Now, of course, you could say, well, now the state is going to finance their political campaigns, but then it really becomes, like, what if somebody's a freaking lunatic? Socialism is a belief. Socialism is a way of life, and a socialist society cannot simply come into existence. A socialist society can only be built by those who believe in and who themselves practice the principles of socialism. A committed member of TANU will be a socialist, and his fellow socialists, that is, his fellow believers in this political and economic system, are all those in Africa or elsewhere in the world who fight for the rights of peasants and workers. The first duty of the TANU member, and especially of a TANU leader, is to accept these socialist principles and to live his own life in accordance with them. In particular, a genuine TANU leader will not live off the sweat of another man, nor commit any feudalistic or capitalistic actions. The successful implementation of socialist objectives depends very much upon the leaders, because socialism is a belief in a particular system of living, and it's difficult for leaders to promote its growth if they do not themselves accept it. Alright, so let's check out the comments. Let's see. Trigger Happy says gotta be two-faced. Okay, pro-black perspectives here. Pro-black perspective said nope. Note. I'm just joking. Tanzan says democracy needs capital and capitalism. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be really hard to reach 10 million people. You could make the state do it, but then what happens is that, what are the qualifications for running in an election? Like, could you have an election of 50 people running? Why not? And so now you're gonna have a campaign with 50 people running. Why? You know what I'm saying? Or 50 political parties. Like, what's the limit? Now, if there's no, like, again, you want to control, like, I guess I won't say control, but you want people, like, people are regulated by reward and punishment. People are controlled by reward and punishment. What is the punishment for me running a political party in Tanzania? There's no political punishment, right? If the state is paying for it, there's no political punishment. So what happens is now the state is going to pay for my political campaign, even if I'm not serious. Even if I'm like, you know what? It's like all right, like here in New York. So when we were doing the Freedom Party, there was another election. There's another political party called Rent is Too Damn High Party. And basically it was this black guy who was like always in his car, I guess. But he's this black guy who's just like, rent is too damn high. And that's it. And he's just a comic relief. We were running a serious political campaign. We got our 50,000 signatures. He also got his 50,000 signatures. And he was at the debates. And we was at the debates. The only thing is that it cost us to do the 50,000 and it cost him to do the 50,000. But if it didn't cost him, we could have like basically it cost him, so he didn't run again, basically. He just ran that one time for governor and that was it. However, if it didn't cost him, like, what's to stop the rent is too damn low party, and then the chicken costs too damn much party, and then the umbrellas, we don't need umbrellas when it rains party, like it's like what's the limit? What's the limit? Now, obviously, you could be like, well, at that political thing, I think you didn't need to pay, but you did need to collect so many signatures. But that's the point. It's like you want a cost on everything, and the issue, of course, is that people were able to get the signatures for rent is too damn high. But anyway, part 3: the policy of self-reliance. We are at war. TANU is involved in a war against poverty and oppression in our country. The struggle is aimed at moving the people of Tanzania and the people of Africa as a whole from the state of poverty to the state of prosperity. Look at him. He just loves Africa. I love it. We have not oppressed a great deal. We have been oppressed a great deal. We have been exploited a great deal, and we have been regarded a great deal. It is our weakness that has led to our being oppressed, exploited, and disregarded. You see that? It is our weakness that has led to our being oppressed, exploited, and disregarded. Check. Now we want a revolution which brings to an end to our weakness so that we are never again exploited, oppressed, or humiliated. By the way, those of you who might be like, Oni, you clearly highlighted this bullet. I actually didn't, so that's pretty cool. All right. So a poor man does not use money as a weapon. It is obvious that in the past we have chosen the wrong weapon for our struggle because we chose money as our weapon. We are trying to overcome our economic weaknesses by using the weapons of economically strong. Weapons which in fact we do not possess. By our thoughts, words, and actions, it appears as if we have come to the conclusion that without money we cannot bring about the revolution we are aiming at. It is as if we have said money is the basis of development. Without money there can be no development. And of course we still have this opinion. So I mean, like, these are like good things to like clip out and just share with the wider public, because like not everybody's gonna read through the Arusha Declaration, but because you are or because we do, we can share the snippets. All right, so anyway, that is what we believe at present. Tanu leaders and government leaders and officials all put great emphasis and dependence on money. The people's leader and the people themselves in Tanu, Nuta, parliamentary, UWT, the cooperatives, Tapa, and in other national institutions think, hope, and pray for money. It is as if we had all agreed to speak with one voice, saying, if we get money, we shall develop. Without money, we cannot develop. In brief, our 5-year development plan aims at more food, more education, and better health, but the weapon we have put emphasis upon is money. It is as if we said, in the next 5 years, we want to have more food, more education, and better health, and in order to achieve these things, we shall spend 250 million pounds. We think and speak as in the most important thing to depend upon is money, and anything else we intend to use it is in our struggle is of minor importance. When a member of parliament, now I do want to articulate why this money thing is a thing. Money you can use to exchange for labor, and for tools like machinery and all that kind of stuff. Essentially, people are not going to give you tools without money. You know what I mean? Unless you like barter something. But like usually they're not going to give you tools, and then, and again, and on the other side, it's like people are not really trying to give you labor without money. I mean, sure, we occasionally volunteer among ourselves, but like particularly among strangers, it's pretty rare. Somebody just sent me a notification on. All right, it's pretty rare without. All right, it's pretty rare for whatever. All right. When a member of parliament says that there is a shortage of water in his constituency and he asks the government how it intends to deal with the problem, he expects the government to reply that it's planning to remove the shortage of water in his constituency with money. Then another member of parliament asks what the government's doing about the shortage of roads, schools, or hospitals in his constituency. He also expects the government to tell him that if it has specific plans to build roads, schools, and hospitals in constituency with money. So I could say, for instance, for roads, yeah, you probably would use money. Like in order to get the tools to build those roads, you would need to get like an expensive ass tractor. That tractor, or not tractor, but you get what I'm saying, right? One of those rolling things, whatever. And I could say this: I saw some men here in America rebuilding the road. Like basically repaving the road or whatever, right? There's a lot of dudes standing around with heavy machinery that you really can't afford. On your own. You're not really, like, you can't really just go outside and do it. You know what I mean? Even if you wanted to go outside and do it, you need to get the materials to yourself. And like, how are you going to get the materials? Now, you can technically get up one day and go to the gravel site, like walk to the gravel site, get your buckets and walk back or something. I don't know. Or you could drive and all that stuff. But like realistically, like, yeah, there's a labor cost, at least. And there's a cost. I mean, if you just see the gravel lying on the floor, maybe there's no cost for that. But if somebody is selling the gravel, then there's a cost, But just to clarify, again, just to clarify, because like nothing against Nyerere, and there's nothing against Nyerere. It's just to give context to the people that he's engaging, who are like money. It's like, yeah, a lot of people are like, yeah, like they're selling gravel, they're selling these, like you could rent these machines, but you can't, like you could do it by hand, but Like I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people wouldn't. You could do it by hand, but like most people wouldn't. And if you do it by hand, it's like, are you gonna pay the people to do it by hand, or are you just gonna like, you know what I mean? All right. So when a NUTA official asked the government about its plan to deal with the low wages and poor housing of the workers, he expects the government to inform him that the minimum wage will be increased and that better houses will be provided for the workers with money. Well, wages, yeah. All right. When a TAPA official asked the government what plans it has to give assistance to the many TAPA schools which do not get government aid, he expects the government to state that it is ready the following morning to give the required assistance with money. When an official of the cooperative movement mentions any problem facing the farmer, he expects to hear that the government will solve the farmer's problem with money. In short, for every problem facing our nation, the solution that is in everybody's mind is money. Each year, each ministry of government makes its estimates of expenditure, the amount of money it will require in the coming year to meet recurrent and development expenses. Only one minister and his ministry make estimates on revenue. This is the Minister of Finance. Every ministry puts forward very good development plans. When the ministry presents its estimates, it believes that the money is there for the asking, but that the Minister for Finance and his ministry are being obstructive. And regularly, each year, the Minister for Finance had to tell his fellow ministers that there is no money. And each year, the ministries complain about the Ministry of Finance when it trims down their estimates. Similarly, when the ministry, members of government, when Parliament and other leaders demand that the government, and so actually I do want to say this, so we do, like, again, it's not necessarily money, but we do want to figure out a way to increase our money supply. You get what I'm saying? And so that's partly why I'm also reading this other book, Wealth of Nations, you know, because it is like a real problem. Like what he's talking about right here is the budgeting. You know, every state does every country these days does a budget. You know, what are the development costs for this? You know, what are the costs? What is our revenue, right? Like what are our expenses? What are our revenue? And like they balance those two against each other. Now, again, if you go back to traditional Africa, you know, agrarian lifestyle, you probably didn't have the chief working through a budget. I don't know, but I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe not every chief did that. Maybe some did. I don't know. But like usually you wouldn't. So if you're looking at that lifestyle where it's like there's not really a public expense, or there's not really public expenses that cost so much that you would demand a public revenue, that's a different thing. But like, you know, in the modern societies, there is that public expense. Like you have to pay for the schools, you have to pay for the roads, you have to pay for the so on and so forth, and like there's like labor in that, involved in that. And so, you know, the question does become, well, can you cut back on those costs? You know, but you know, like again, like to what extent? You know, like let's say you cut back on the cost of schools. Well, do the kids have books? You know, like will the kids still have books? You know what I'm saying? Or because like it's one thing to be like, okay, teachers, just educate the kids. But it's a whole other thing to be like, okay, book publisher, just give us free books. You know what I mean? Or free pens and all that kind of stuff. Because like that's where it's like, I mean it's a possibility, but it's just like, you know. And then that kind of like speaks towards the innovation part too. So anyway, so similarly, when members of parliament and other leaders demand that the government should carry out a certain development, they believe that there is a lot of money to spend on such projects, but the government is the stumbling block. Yet such belief on the part of ministries, members of parliament, and other leaders does not alter the stark truth. But the government has no money. When it is said that the government has no money, what does this mean? It means that the people of Tanzania have insufficient money. The people pay taxes out of the very little wealth they have. It is from these taxes that the government meets its recurrent and development expenditure. When we call on the government to spend more money on the development projects, we are asking the government to use more money. And if the government does not have any more, the only way it can do this is to increase its revenue through extra taxation. And so, yeah, governments do make from taxation as well as trade, right? So if one calls on the government to spend more, one is in effect calling on the government to increase taxes. Calling on the government to spend more without raising taxes is like demanding that the government should perform miracles. It is equivalent to asking for more milk from a cow, while insisting that the cow should not be milked again. But our refusal to admit that calling the government to spend more is the same as calling on the government to raise taxes shows that we fully realize the difficulties of increasing taxes. We realize that the cow has no more milk. That is, that the people find it difficult to pay more taxes. We know that the cow would like to have more milk herself so that her calves could drink it, or that she would like more milk, which could be sold to provide more comfort for herself or her calves. But knowing all the things which could be done with more milk does not alter the fact that the cow has no more milk. So, there is a taxation. Of course, a lot of us blame the corruption. And so that's another thing too. But yeah, that's it. Let me see what the comments are like. Shaka Raz here. What? Shaka Raz here. Is it, oh yes, good reading. This document is very important case study. So Shaka Raz here. That's pretty good. We all know Shaka Raz. He's big time. You know what I mean? So we in the big league. I gotta sit up and fix my mannerisms, right? All right. Anyway, let's keep going. So what of external aid? Oh, did I say what he said though? I think he just said peace. Let me see. Shaka Raz says, good reading. This document is a very important case study. Yeah, for sure. What of external aid? So one method we use to try and avoid a recognition of the need to increase taxes if we want to have more money for development is to think in terms of getting the extra money from outside of Tanzania. Such external finance falls into three main categories, right? A, the gifts. This means that another government gives our government a sum of money as a free gift for a particular development scheme. Sometimes it may be that an institution in another country gives our government or an institution in our country financial help for development programs, right? So yeah, right? What's free, okay? B, loans. The greater portion of financial help we expect to get from outside is not in the form of gifts or charity, but in the forms of loans, right? So he's like, most people will probably give us a loan. So a foreign government or a foreign institution such as a bank lends our government money for the purpose of development. Such a loan has repayment conditions attached to it, covering such factors as the time period for which it is available and the rate of interest. Hopefully he's going to go into what these loans are about, but as we read with Chinwezu, he says that a lot of them send these, like there's an economic hitman book or whatever, but they send loans with the express purpose that you fail. You know what I mean? So they'll say, hey, you know what? Here's a bunch of money. And like the loans actually benefit the projects that benefit their own people. So let's say it's like this. Okay, let's say I'm an American, right? I go to Africa. Okay, let's go to Nigeria because, like I said, I'm not planning on going to Nigeria, right? I go to Nigeria, U.S. Like let's say there's like a Pan-African organization. No, let's not even do it. Like let's do it's like a CIA-backed organization, right? Now again, let's not use me. Let's just use me for whatever. But I obviously wouldn't be working with no white boys, but still. Right, these white boys are like, "Hey, Oni, you're my agent." All right, that sounded weird. Let me just use somebody else. All right, yeah, Tariq Nasheed. There you go, Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed's inside of Nigeria now, right? They're like, Tariq Nasheed, you're our agent, okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna send you, like, you start up a paper factory, okay? You start up a paper factory in Nigeria, okay? And Tariq Nasheed's like, how am I gonna afford a paper factory in Nigeria? Don't worry, we're gonna get the government to support you. Right? So they call up Buhari and they say, Buhari, we want you guys to sell us paper. And Buhari says, we don't make paper. And it's like, no, I know this dude named Tariq Nasheed in your thing. You help this dude out, right? We'll give you the loan. You sign off on the loan, and then he can produce the paper and give you a good piece of profit. And they're like, shit, you're going to give us a loan of $1 billion? It's like, yeah, you make this paper, you can sell us this paper, and if the profit comes through, you'll be able to pay this off in 10 years. Easy. 10 years? Shit. Okay. Will I be thinking about this in 10 years? You better, right? Whatever. Then they do this deal. Tariq Nasheed collects like $500 million. Buhari collects like $500 million. The paper company doesn't go through, and then the government in 10 years owes, let's say, so I said it was $1 billion. That's a lot of money, but whatever. Now they owe $2 billion, and they got nothing to show for it. And so it's like, oh, okay, Tariq Nasheed brings back the $500 million, whatever, and then now you're in debt for $2 billion, and they can like, oh, you signed away collateral, and so therefore we're taking $2 billion worth of land or something from you. You know what I mean? Or we have you by the, we have you by the genitals, or the testicles, because of your like being in debt to us. Now we can like collect on this debt, or we could ignore it, and you could vote like along with us in the United Nations. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So that's like what the loaning business is. Although, and like I'm actually a little sad about it, because Nyerere himself does end up taking one of these loans, or like asking for a loan. Like there's a few videos of him doing that kind of stuff. Shakarat says peace. All right. Peace King, he says. C, private investment. The third category of financial help is also greater than the first. This takes... Okay, yeah, so this is like the same as the private individual. It's the same like the loan. This takes the form of investment in one country by individuals or companies from outside. The important condition which such private investors have in mind is that the enterprise into which they put their money should bring them profit, and that our government should permit them to repatriate those profits. They also prefer to invest in a country whose policies they agree with, and which will safeguard their economic interests. So he's saying that private investments are even bigger, and that's the same thing. Like, you got Tariq Nasheed there, and then he collects a bunch of, like, he's investing only to get the money back out. So these three are the main categories of external finance, and there is in Tanzania a fantastic amount of talk about getting money from outside. Our government and different groups of our leaders never stop thinking about methods of getting finance from abroad. And if we get some money, or even if we just get a promise of it, our newspapers, our radio, and our leaders all advertise the fact in order that every person shall know that salvation is coming or is on the way. If we receive a gift, we announce it. If we receive a loan, we announce it. If we get a new factory, we announce it, and always loudly. In the same way, when we get a promise of a gift, a loan, or a new industry, we make an announcement of the promise. Even when we have merely started a discussion with a foreign government or institution for a gift, a loan, or a new industry, we make an announcement, even though we do not know the outcome of the discussion. Why do we do all this? Because we want people to know that we have started discussions which will bring prosperity. Yeah, shit, boy. Look at this. So I know I told you guys that I just got a notification on my Discord, right? So this brother on Discord literally just wrote, Uganda has acquired land for the construction of East Africa's nuclear power plant, right? Of course, this is actually an old tweet, and he's dancing, and it's like, yeah, we're finally, so on and so forth. But it's like, that's exactly what they just said. Like literally, as soon as you're even in talks of getting a new industry, it's like all of us are like, woo, we're getting it, we're there, we made it, and it's like, what, like me personally, I'm just like, let's see what happens, but like we tend to be like, yo, new money's coming in, but no, but I think this brother is actually celebrating the fact that it's nuclear energy. But it is what it is. All right. So do not let us depend upon money for development. It is stupid to rely on money as a major instrument of development when we know only too well that our country is poor. It is equally stupid, indeed. It is even more stupid for us to imagine that we shall rid ourselves of our poverty through foreign financial assistance rather than on our own financial resources. It is stupid for two reasons, right? Firstly, we shall not get the money. It is true that there are countries which can and which would like to help us. But there is no country in the world which is prepared to give us gifts or loans or establish industries to the extent that it would be able to achieve all of our development targets. There are many needy countries in the world, and even if all the prosperous nations were willing to help the needy countries, the assistance would still not suffice. But in any case, the prosperous nations have not accepted a responsibility to fight world poverty. Even within their own borders, poverty still exists, and the rich individuals do not willingly give money to the government to help their poor fellow citizens. Yeah, that was one of the big lessons I learned when I was on Wall Street. I saw this white boy begging. He's like, well, I wasn't on. I was literally on Wall Street. I wasn't like working there. I was like literally walking on Wall Street for some reason, and I saw this white boy just begging, like homeless, elderly, all that shit. And this white dude in a suit who looked like he was well-to-do kind of took the long way around him. And like it dawned on me that if these white people are just like ugh to their own people, like, then why would they not to you? I think some people say that Bill Clinton's brother is like in and out of prison. You know what I mean? Joe Biden's son, they're like, is like a druggie, like a drug addict kind of shit, you know? Uh, like this is like the real world. You know, the real world is that nobody would really care for their own people. You know, and it goes back to that African proverb, which is, if a crocodile doesn't, if a crocodile or an alligator would eat its own eggs, what will it do to the flesh of a frog? It's like if these white people are not trying to stop the poverty in their own backyard, why would they go to yours? You know what I mean? Like, why would they go to yours? Like, why would they stop it in your backyard? So anyway, it is only through taxation, which people have to pay whether they want to or not, that money can be extracted from the rich in order to help the masses. Even then, there would not be enough money. However, heavily we tax the citizens of Tanzania and the aliens living here, the resulting revenue would not be enough to meet the cost of the development we want. And there is no world government which can tax the prosperous nations in order to help the poor nations. Nor, if one did exist, could it raise enough revenue to do all that is needed in the world. But in fact, such a world government does not exist. Such money as the rich nations offer to the poor nations is given voluntarily, either through their own goodness or for their own benefit. All this means that it is impossible for Tanzania to obtain from overseas enough money to develop our economy. Okay, let's keep going. Gifts and loans will endanger our independence. Secondly, even if we were possible for us to get enough money for our needs from external sources, is this what we really want? Independence means self-reliance. Underline that. Independence cannot be real if a nation depends upon gifts and loans from another for its development. Even if there was a nation or nations prepared to give us all the money we need for our development, it would be improper for us to accept such assistance without asking ourselves how this would affect our independence and our very survival as a nation. Gifts which increase or act as a catalyst to our own efforts are valuable. But gifts which could have the effect of weakening or distorting our own efforts should not be accepted until we had asked ourselves a number of questions. This same applies to loans. It is true that loans are better than free gifts. A loan is intended to increase our efforts or make those efforts more fruitful. One condition of a loan is that you show how you are going to repay it. This means you have to show that you intend to use the loan profitably and will therefore be able to repay it. Now, again, there are some loans that are made knowing full damn well you won't repay it. And as far as the gifts are concerned, like, think about Liberia and Firestone here. You know, think about Garvey's part. Like, again, I said I put that in the Book of Power, but realistically, you can read Philosophies and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. There's a whole section on from this guy, Eli Garcia. I call it in my book the letter that destroyed Garveyism. You know? Well, not destroyed Garveyism, but, you know, like impeded Garvey, right? And essentially he kind of writes his review of Liberia, and it's so good. But, like, one thing you want to know is that the Americans, like, the Liberian government was looking for money from outside, and so Garvey was offering money, America was offering money, England was offering money, and France was offering money. Garvey had a really good offer, but some traitor among the UNIA, like, who's jealous of one other, like, he was jealous of the president or something, I don't know, not Marcus Garvey, there's a different president, he's like the president of, like, the ex-president of Liberia or something, right? He was jealous of that, and then he, like, had this little conflict, and he gave the United States, like, Secretary of State or some shit, he gave the CIA, you know, he gave, like, basically the American intelligence agencies Garvey's personal thought. No, he gave them that letter that I'm talking about. So in the letter that we're talking about, the Liberia is like the guy Ali Works Garcia is like, that's why I said this letter is the one that destroys Garvey, right? But in the letter, he's like, yo, this government is freaking incompetent, and we can take it over. You know what I mean? Like, we can take it over. You don't let Ascari or let politicians know that you're trying to take them over. You know, it's like the whole January 6th thing. You don't do that shit. Like, you just don't do it. Anyway, I mean, if you do it, you, like, mum's the word. Like, say what you want about January 6th. Like, nobody even knew that was happening until it happened, right? Or at least I didn't know, right? Anyhow, what am I saying now? So January 6th, yeah. So with regard to that, they rejected his plan, but America had a plan for giving Liberia money too. And this is like, I think this was like before Firestone, but it's like Firestone eventually went into Liberia, right? And that was the thing that went into the sovereignty of Liberians, right? But like the politicians didn't care because they weren't the ones being enslaved by Firestone. Either way, the thing with that is that America had a plan, like was offering Liberia money under the condition that it completely controlled its finances. You know, and so it's like, yeah, like independence. You know, it's like gift, like what Nyerere is talking about in regards to gifts and how they can weaken your own efforts, like, is a real thing. But of course, the thing with what's happening in Liberia was that the government was so, like, the politicians were so bad at spending that even America was like, yeah, no, we're not just gonna give you money. You're gonna have to like forfeit your economy to us. You know, off of the principle that you just wouldn't, like, you wouldn't make a, like, you wouldn't be good doing this. Tanzan says nothing for free. Avoid accepting any aid or gift and skeptical about loans. Yeah, I mean, you know, like it's easier said than done. You know, like if your people are starving, let's say it's like when shit hits the fan. You know, here in America, I got like white neighbors, right? Am I going to be like, no, I don't, not just white neighbors, but, you know, usually, like, normally I just go to the black people around me, obviously. But like if shit really hits the fan and like only people I see are white people, it's like, am I gonna be like, fuck it, let me go starve? You know what I mean? So that's like a thing with nations too. It's like, you know, Liberia, you're surrounded by England, France, and America, and maybe there's like an organization in America called the UNIA, but France and England are finna invade you if the UNIA like they're finna invade you. So it's like, what do you fucking do? You know, how do you protect yourself in that kind of hostile environment? And then like the UNIA is like, yeah, we're gonna take your government over too. And it's like, ah, shit, you know? Like, I mean, it's a hard choice. Like, obviously, you know, we can say just go with the UNIA, you know, and get the invasion from France, get the invasion from England, and or possibly lose your government to the UNIA. Sure. But like realistically, it's like, it's hard to be like in those positions, it's harder to say no. And that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of corruption is kind of like based off of the fact that a lot of us are not sitting there, you know, determining life or death for our people, right? We're kind of just sitting down here like, where's the money, you know? But anyway, but even loans have their limitations. You have to give consideration to the ability to repay. When we borrow money from other countries, it is the Tanzanians who pays it back. And as we have already stated, Tanzanians are poor people. To burden the people with big loans, the repayment of which will be beyond their means, is not to help them, but to make them suffer. If it is even worse when the loans they are asked to repay have not benefited the majority of the people, but have only benefited a small minority. And that's a thing about this capitalist economy. It always kind of benefits small minorities. All right, so how about the enterprises of foreign investors? It is true we need these enterprises. We have even passed an act of parliament protecting foreign investments in this country. Our aim is to make foreign investors feel that Tanzania is a good place in which to invest, because investments would be safe and profitable, and the profits can be taken out of the country without difficulty. We expect to get money through this method, but we cannot get enough. And even if we were able to convince foreign investors and foreign firms to undertake all the projects and all right, I'm kind of not liking this so far, but and programs of economic development that we need, is that what we really want to happen? Had we been able to attract investors from America and Europe to come and start all the industries and all the projects of economic development that we need in this country, could we do so without questioning ourselves? Could we agree to leave the economy of our country in the hands of foreigners, all right, who would take the profits back to their countries? Or supposing they did not insist upon taking their profits away, which they will, so stop it, but decide to reinvest them in Tanzania, could we really accept this situation without asking ourselves what disadvantage our nations would suffer? Would this allow the socialism we have said it is our objective to build? No. I'm pretty sure he's gonna say no, because why would he ask these questions? But you know, it's just like But this is the good thing about this, is that this is a question that people are asking. You know, that's good. How can we depend upon gifts, loans, and investments from foreign countries and foreign companies without endangering our independence? The English people have a proverb which says, "He who pays the piper calls the tune." How can we depend upon foreign governments and companies for the major part of our development without giving to those governments and countries a great part of our freedom to act as we please? The truth is that we cannot. Let us repeat, we We made a mistake in choosing money, something we do not have, to be the big instrument of our development. We are making a mistake to think that we shall get the money from other countries. First, because in fact, we shall not be able to get sufficient money for our economic development. And secondly, because even if we could get all that we need, such dependence upon others would endanger our independence and our ability to choose our own political policies. So, this is a good conclusion. I do want to say, make sure you guys check back with Chinwezu. I think it was the second essay I read about the Japanese. The Japanese they were able to develop without, quote unquote, foreign investment too deeply. Like, they were able to wean away from the foreigner. And that's realistically what you'd want to do. But this is also, again, I want to say that this is the reality. This statement about, well, what about the foreigner? Are we going to protect the foreigner in Africa? And it's yes, you're going to protect the foreigner in Africa if that's what you invited them for. And that sucks, but that's part of the problem with inviting him into the country. In fact, when I was at this restaurant in Ghana, right down the street, there was this white boy buying up a whole property and building it and all that kind of stuff. And I think either one of the local Ghanaians complained or one of my person in my company complained, but it was yeah, that's it. They're going to do that shit if you let them. And, if you're protecting them, that's what it is. We have to put too much emphasis on industry. Now, of course, here's the thing I want to say, though. If I go to Africa, I'll technically be a foreigner. So, I don't really mind foreign protection. For me, you know what I'm saying? We have to put too much emphasis on industries. We have put too much emphasis on industry. So I'm not sure I'm going to agree with this, but let's go on. Because of our emphasis on money, we have made another big mistake. We have put too much emphasis on industries. Just as we have said, without money, there can be no development. We also seem to say industries are the basis of development. Without industries, there is no development. This is true. The day when we have lots of money, we shall be able to say we are a developed country. We shall be able to say we have began our development plans. We did not have enough money, and the situation made it difficult for us to develop as fast as we wanted. Today, we are developed and we have enough money. That is to say, our money has been brought by development. Similarly, the day we become industrialized, we shall be able to say we are developed. Development would have enabled us to have industries. The mistake we are making is to think that development begins with industries. It is a mistake because we do not have the means to establish many modern industries in our country. We do not have either the necessary finances or the technical know-how. So again, you do want finances and technical know-how. Well, particularly technical know-how. Well, yeah, finances too. All right. It is not enough to say that we shall borrow the finances and the technicians from other countries to come and start the industries. The answer to this is the same one we gave earlier, that we cannot get enough money and borrow enough technicians to start all the industries we need. And even if we could get the necessary assistance, dependence on it could interfere with our policy of socialism. The policy of inviting a chain of capitalists to come and establish industries into our country might succeed in giving us all the industries we need, but it would also succeed in preventing the establishment of socialism unless we believe that without first building capitalism, we cannot build socialism. So a lot of people do believe that you cannot build socialism without building capitalism first. That's what the Marxist creed is. Now, I feel like this was underdeveloped. It was one paragraph, and I feel like he's just going to go on to the next thing. What I do want to say is, go back to the Japanese example. Go back to the Japanese example. And figure out how they did it. That's one of the things about the planet is that the planet is kind of like a series of alternate universes. You know what I mean? What if the whole population was this? What if everything is different. Every place is different. In a different time zone or a different whatever, a different time era or a different whatever, different demographic, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just study other people and figure out how they did it. In essence, it's an important question. Let me see what the comments are like. Tanzan says, read the small print and learn negotiation tactics. It's a hard choice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's this video of this lady on what's that show called? TED Talks or something like that. And she's saying that she used to work for one of these banks, and when the bank people who give loans to foreign countries, they said they love going to Africa because the people in Africa do not negotiate at all. In China, they're looking at every line and they're walking away from the negotiation winning. But in Africa, it's you give them the first offer. You're hey, this loan is for $1 million and it's at a 20%, they're like, yes. And in China, you're like, this loan is for $1 million, 20%. They're like, nope, make it five, make it $2 million, 5%. They're like, no, it's gonna be, and then like they just barter it down, and like eventually they get like $5 million at 2%. And the bank is like, what happened? You know what I mean? But like, yeah, like losing at the negotiation table is just like classic for us. All right, so let us pay heed to the peasant. Our emphasis on money and industries has made us concentrate on urban development. And so there's a reason, but yeah, we recognize that we do not have enough money to bring this kind of development to each village, which would benefit everybody. We also know that we cannot establish an industry in each village and through this means affect a rise in the real income of the people. For these reasons, we spend most of our money in the urban areas and our industries are established in the town. So again, I told you there's a town-country dichotomy. That's like realistically at the crux of capitalism and all that kind of stuff, and the crux of our problems, honestly. But anyway, so the greater part of this money that we spend in the towns comes from loans. And don't quote me on that. I just said it. I just randomly said it. All right. The greater part of this money that we spend in the towns comes from loans. Whether it is to use to build schools, hospitals, houses, or factories, it still has to be repaid. But it's obvious that it cannot be repaid just out of money obtained from urban and industrial development. To repay the loans, we have to use foreign currency, which is obtained from the sale of our exports. But we do not now sell our industrial products in foreign markets, and indeed, it is likely to be a long time before our industry is produced for export. The main aim of our new industries is import substitution, that is, to produce things which up to now we have had to import from foreign countries. It is therefore obvious that the foreign currency we shall use to pay back the loans used in development of the urban area will not come from the towns or the industries. Where then shall we get it from? We shall get it from the village and from agriculture. So this is actually a little problem right here. Like if he's talking about focusing on the export of the raw material, it's just like the same damn economy that we have that's messing us over. We shall get it from the village and from the agriculture. What does this mean? It means that the people who benefit directly from development, which is brought about by borrowed money, are not the ones who will repay the loans. The largest proportion of the loans will be spent in or for the urban area, but the largest proportion of the repayment will be made through the efforts of the farmers. This fact should always be borne in mind, for there are various forms of exploitation. So you don't want to say this is exploitation, but okay. We must not forget that people who live in towns can possibly become the exploiters of those who live in the rural areas. All our big hospitals are in towns, and they benefit only a small section of the people of Tanzania. Yet if we have built them with loans from outside Tanzania, it is the overseas sale of the peasants' produce which provides the foreign exchange for repayment. So again, this is like technically true. So I'm not like, you see the check marks, double check marks. This is tough. Because like the hospital, so one of the things that we want to understand is why there are towns versus why there are countries. And so like that's really like something that you want to like study, in the sense that everybody can get to the town to get to the hospital. You get what I'm saying? You put the town somewhere where everybody can get to, where everybody can trade and all that kind of stuff. And so that you wouldn't have it dispersed around the villages where it's harder to, like, basically you just want to centralize the commerce. And so you would develop the place where you centralize the commerce in order to, like it's tough, but yeah, like if everybody can get to the farm, that's, like if everybody's going to the farm, or to the city every day, then that's, like, it just makes it a lot easier for, like, that, like one hospital to service everybody. You get what I'm saying? Whereas, like, if you, like, say if you had a hospital in every village, then you just have 10 hospitals. You know what I mean? Like, you just have 10, like, if there's 10 villages surrounding a city, you could either have one hospital to provide for the 10 villages, or you could have 11 hospitals, one in the city and one in each village. But then it's like, where do the doctors go? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you'd want to like again, like so that's the reason why I like just reading about the history of economics, in a sense, in order that you can kind of get what it's like. It's kind of like, don't tear down a fence unless you know why it was built up. Not to say that Nyerere didn't know, because Nyerere clearly knows. Like, he's brilliant. Like, he's very, very brilliant. But what he's writing here is kind of like really it's like kind of simplified to the point where it's like too simplified. You know what I mean? So he says those who do not get the benefit of the hospital thus carry the major responsibility of paying for them. Tarmac roads too are mostly found in towns and are of special value for the motor car owners. Yet if we have built those roads with loans, it is again the farmer who produces the goods which will pay for them. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, the real issue that happens in Africa is that you have these foreign loans. You get what I'm saying? So what happens is that when the Europeans built their roads and their cities, they didn't use foreign loans. You get what I'm saying? So there wasn't like you would say that that was a problem. It's like the problem here is that you're doing the foreign roads thing. Yet if we have built those roads with loans, it is again the farmer who produces the goods which will pay for them. What is more, the foreign exchange with which the car was bought also came from the sale of the farmer's produce. Again, electric lights, water pipes, hotels, and other aspects of modern development are mostly found in towns. Most of them have been built with loans, and most of them do not benefit the farmer directly. Although they will be paid for by the foreign exchange earned by the sale of his produce, we should always bear this in mind. So I do want to, I think that's interesting, but you guys get it. Although when we talk of exploitation, we usually think of capitalists, we should not forget that there are many fish in the sea. They eat each other. The large ones eat the small ones eat those which are even smaller. There are two possible ways of dividing the people in our country. We can put the capitalists and feudalists on one side and the farmers and workers on the other. But we can also divide the people into urban dwellers on one side and those who live in the rural areas on the other. If we are not careful, we might get to the position where the real exploitation in Tanzania is that of the town dwellers exploiting the peasants. So I think that's a pretty interesting thing. EL's waving hi. Hi, EL. Peace. All right. So let's keep going. The people in agriculture. The development of a country is brought about by people, not by money. Money and the wealth it represents is the result of, not the basis of development. The four prerequisites of development are different. They are one, people, two, land, three, good policies, four, good leadership. I said I. Can you imagine that? Like I. Double I, triple I, IV. All right. Our country has more than 10 million people, and its area is more than 362,000 square miles. So he says 10 million people. There's an asterisk here. It says the 1967 census shows 12.3 million people. All right. So agriculture is the basis of development. So, and this is true too. Like, you're going to see, even this guy, Adam Smith says this. So a great part of Tanzania's land is fertile. No props to this guy. Obviously, props to this guy right here, Nyerere. It's just that I'm just telling you that, you know, it's not like this, not outrageous. It's something, it's like widely agreed on, I guess. A great deal of Tanzania's land is fertile and gets sufficient rain. Our country can produce various crops for home consumption and for export. We can produce food crops, which can be exported if we produce in large quantities, such as maize, rice, wheat, beans, groundnuts, etc. And we can produce such cash crops as sisal, cotton, coffee, tobacco, pyrethrum, tea, etc. Our land is also good for grazing cattle, goats, sheep, and for raising chickens, etc. We can get plenty of fish from our rivers, lakes, and from the sea. All of our farmers are in areas which can produce 2 or 3 or even more of the food and cash crops enumerated above, and each farmer could increase his production so as to get more food or more money. And because the main aim of development is to get more food and more money for our other needs, our purpose must be to increase production of these agricultural crops. This is in fact the only road through which we can develop our country. In other words, only by increasing our production of these things can we get more food and more money for every Tanzanian. Right? Okay. That's not bad. So yeah, you do want to industrialize the farm. So that would also entail that you obviously have a factory that makes these the industrial tools. So the conditions of development, hard work. Everybody wants development, but not everybody understands and accepts the basic requirements for development. The biggest requirement is hard work. Let us go to the village and talk to our people and see whether or not it's possible for them to work harder. Okay. I do want to say, yeah, all right, let's just leave it at that. In towns, for example, wage earners normally work for 7.5 or 8 hours a day and for 6 or 6.5 days a week. 6 days a week? Fuck. Okay. This is about 45 hours a week for the whole year, except for 2 or 3 weeks leave. In other words, a wage earner works for 45 hours a week for 48 or 50 weeks of the year. Now, he's going to compare this to the farmer. But yeah, hopefully he compares this to the farmer. But yeah, no. You know what I mean? Like, no. Ain't no way, boy. But anyway, gotta tell you, I was working for this freaking luxury job, this remote job. I was working this remote job. And like, I do like 8 hours a day. And I was like tired of that shit. I was like, ugh. Not that I'm like a leisure class guy, but you know. All right, telling on myself. Bit of medicine says EL says peace, Tanzan. All right. For a country like ours, there are really quite short working hours. In other countries, even those which are more developed than we are, people work for more than 45 hours a week. It is not normal for a young country to start with such a short working week. Wait, what? 45 hours a week is short? Bumba clouds. All right. The normal thing is to begin. What? The normal thing is to begin with long working hours and decrease them as the country becomes more and more prosperous. By starting with such short working hours and asking for even shorter hours, we are in fact imitating the more developed countries, and we shall regret this imitation. Nevertheless, wage earners do work for 45 hours per week, and their annual vacation does not exceed 4 weeks. It would be appropriate to ask our farmers, especially the men, how many hours a week and how many weeks a year they work. Many do not even work for half as many hours as the wage earners do. The truth is that in the village, the women work very hard. At times, they work for 12 or 14 hours a day. Oh, okay. That they even work on Sundays. Wait, I'm kind of missing this. I'm confused. Okay. Even work on Sundays and public holidays. Women who live in the village work harder than anybody else in Tanzania. But the men who live in villages, for some of the women in town, and some of the women in town are on leave for half of their life. The energies of the millions of men in the village and the thousands of women in the town, which are at present wasted in gossip, dancing, and drinking, are a great treasure which could contribute more towards the development of our country than anything we can get from rich nations. We would be doing something very beneficial to our country if we went to the village and told our people that they hold their treasure and that it is up to them to use it for their own benefit and the benefit of our work, a whole nation. So somebody could probably elaborate on this to me. What do you mean you're working 14 hours a day? You know, the thing with farming is that I don't think that, well, it depends on like how basic the farming is, I guess, and how much land you have. But like usually I don't think you'd work 14 hours a day. I mean, I guess maybe if you're like pounding, like you're cooking, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you're preparing food, but I don't know if that's the same as, I wouldn't consider that the same as farming. So like if you're like, you know, making the dough or whatever, the fufu or what have you, I don't know if that, I would consider that working, especially if you're not like making it for sale. Like if you're just making it to cook for everybody, then I don't know if I would consider that working, per se. But yeah, like that's what I was telling you guys, I think it was yesterday, that yeah, people in the village are not working like that, because the reason why you wouldn't work like that is because you have to work with the land, and the land is doing most of the work, you know. Like sure, you can water it, sure you can, like there's like a season where you harvest, and there's like a season where you just kind of like don't do anything. Whereas when it comes to the laborer, the wage earner, they're working 50 weeks of the year. Now granted, there's a workaround for that, but that's like something to explore too. Like there's a working for that. Tanzan says poor people should work longer. Okay, Tanzan sounded like a dictator right there. like what? I mean, because there's a way for people to not work longer. Like you just have multiple people at the same job. You know what I mean? Like if the factory has to be run 24/7, or if the factory has to be run for 16 hours, you can have 4 people on 2 people shift. You know what I'm saying? And they can work for 4 hours, and it's the same industrial output. So you could do that, but instead we're just like, F it, you know, work those 8 hours. And it's like, why? I don't really particularly see why, but like, it's like, why? Like I wouldn't mind the 4-hour thing, but anyway, it is what it is. All right, intelligence. The second condition of development is the use of intelligence. Unintelligent hard work would not bring the same good result as the two combined. Using a big hoe instead of a small one. Using a plow pulled by oxen instead of an ordinary hoe. The use of fertilizers, the use of insecticides, knowing the right crop for a particular season or soil, choosing good seed for planting. That means not non-GMO. You guys get it. Knowing the right time for planting, weeding, etc. All these things show the use of knowledge and intelligence, and all of them combine with hard work to produce more and better results. The money and time we spend on passing on this knowledge to the peasant are better spent and bring more benefits to our country than the money and great amount of time we spend on other things which we call development. These facts are well known to all of us. The parts of our 5-year development plan which are on target or where the target has been exceeded are those parts which depend solely upon the people's own hard work. The production of cotton, coffee, cashew nuts, tobacco, and pyrethrum has increased enormously for the past 3 years. But these are things which are produced by hard work and the good leadership of the people, not by the use of great amounts of money. So again, work. So, but that's what I'm saying, like labor and good leadership. Now he's saying you don't have to pay for that, which is fine. But like it's fine. Like like if he didn't have to, he didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like he didn't have to. You know what I mean? Furthermore, the people through their own hard work and with a little help and leadership have finished many development projects in the village. They have built schools, dispensaries, community centers, and roads. They have dug wells, water channels, animal dips, small dams, and completed various other development projects. Had they waited for money, they would not now have the use of these things. So again, like you could have people just in the community just do shit, you know? Like just do shit, and that's fine. Like there's nothing like if you can get away with it, sure. You know, I'm reminded of this. Yeah, I mean, like if you could get, like, it's pretty much like if you get away with free labor. You know? Like what? Okay, all right. But I mean, obviously, like you know, I'm not saying like I mean, like I volunteer all the time. Like somebody asked me to do something for them, and I did it. Just like right now, I'm reading this for free. You know what I mean? It's not like volunteering is not a thing. Tanzan says they usually start around 5 to the land, feeding the chickens, graze the livestock. There's a lot of work on the farm. Milking, taking care of the young and sick animals, weeding crops, harvesting, planting, and dropping season. The farm work is a lot of work. That's why poor people have to work longer. Oh, okay. And just to be clear, Tanzan, how long are they doing this for? Let me see. Feeding the chickens, graze the livestock, milking. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like an understock thing though. So that's another thing that happens with that. So, or like essentially like it goes like, yeah, if you have one person with a huge amount of acres or like one family with a huge amount of acres, then sure they have to do all that stuff. But like, that's the thing about quote unquote division of labor. It's like technically now they don't usually apply division of labor to the farm, but technically in a division of labor situation, you would have one person doing the milking, you know what I mean, and then you have one person taking care of the sick animals and one person weeding the crops and all that kind of stuff, or not one person, maybe like 5 people weeding the crops and harvesting and all that kind of stuff. So like yeah, if you have one person doing that, and it kind of like low key reminds you of slavery where they didn't pay people, but like more or less yeah, you might have field Negroes and house Negroes, you know what I mean? Whereas on the farm, if they didn't have human labor to work with, then yeah, it would be a lot of freaking work on those giant plantations. Like it'd be impractical. But of course, if you were paying people, then like obviously that would cut into your profits as well. But like you could divide the labor. So I mean, I think part of the reason why part of the reason why you would have a long work day is if you did everything yourself. So it's kind of like if you were in a car factory and there was only one employee, then like yeah, if you were building a car, like if you were building cars on your own, like by yourself with all the material around you, then sure, like that would take up all your day. You know what I mean? And you would just produce like one car or 5 cars or something. I don't know. But if you're like just you know, just drilling in the tires, then yeah, you could do that you could do that for 8 hours, but you don't have to do that for 14 hours. You know, you'll be drilling in cars, and at the end of the day, you'd produce like 2,000 cars. You know, Bit of Medicine says in the Caribbean, you work early in the morning until the sun gets hot at noon. Might get a bit longer, but not 14 hours. Yeah. So Tanzania is telling you that back in actually, I don't remember what country she said she's from. I know she's named after Tanzania, but she's like back home they used to work longer than the Caribbeans. So Sorry, bit of medicine. Y'all don't know what it's like. Anyway, hard work is the root of development. Some planned projects which depend on money are going on well, but there are many which have stopped and others which might never be fulfilled. Now, actually, I do have a question about that. Just to go back to that conversation. So about the harvesting season, isn't harvesting season like a particular, like maybe like a month or something? It's not like every day that you're. Oh, sorry, not every day that you're planting and not every day that you're harvesting. Maybe every day you're weeding, but I think that there's like a certain season for harvesting and there's a certain season for planting. And so I don't think you'll be doing that every day. Now, maybe feeding the chickens is an everyday thing, or grazing the livestock is an everyday thing. But see, grazing the livestock and feeding the chicken, gonna be honest, don't really look at that as labor, you know? Like feeding the chicken is really like grabbing a bucket and throwing food at chickens in a pen or something. And grazing the livestock is just standing around as cows move around. Like I'm not going to say that's work. So let's see. Tanzan says we work hard until the sun sets at 6:30, 5:30 to 5 to 6:30. So that's 13 hours. Okay. I think she just decided to do that. I would say this, like, what is work? So like harvesting, that's work. Planting, I'd say that's work. Feeding, maybe not. Milking, maybe. Taking care of the youngs, yeah, okay, sure. That's like, it depends on how often you have sick things, but sure, that could be work. But like, I don't know about the feeding the chickens. It's like saying, hey, you know, like me saying me feeding my kid is work. You know what I mean? I guess, I don't know. Feeding the chicken, I guess you do need to do it, and you do need to graze the livestock. I don't know if I would say that's like they're working at, like that seems like a resting point, you know? Like it doesn't seem like, I don't know, but whatever. But I see what you're saying though. Like people are actively involved in the farm life, but I think that's like just a thing. Like you're just like actively involved in your life. Like me going to the, like I started going to like the park with my son. So like me sitting down and letting him run around, like is that me working or is that me? Like technically, yeah. Am I parenting? Sure. Am I being a parent still? Yeah. It's like my, but is it, you know, like I'm literally just like sitting back while he runs up and down. Like that's what I feel like the grazing thing is. I mean, I've never been on a farm, but like I don't really see it as, you know, the same as work per se. You know, hard work is the root of development. Some planned projects which depend on money are going on well, but there are many which have stopped and others which might never be fulfilled because of lack of money. Yet still we talk about money, and our search for money increases and takes nearly all of our energies. We should not lessen our efforts to get the money we really need, but it would be more appropriate for us to spend time in the village showing the people how to bring about development through their own efforts, rather than going on so many long and expensive journeys abroad in search of development money. This is the real way to bring development to everybody in the country. Okay, yeah, you know, I don't actually disagree with this. Yeah. All right, so none of this means that from now on we will not need money, or that we will not start industries or embark upon development projects which require money. Furthermore, we are not saying that we will not accept, or even that we shall not look for money from other countries for development. So this is the problem. It's like, I would rather he was like, we're not going to accept foreign money, you know? I mean, maybe only from African people. I don't know. But still, like, or like, you know, only accept from African people. But still, it's like, what are you saying then, you know? But I mean, I get it. Like, but it's kind of like he's talking too much against money. But then it's like, what's the conclusion? Well, not really any conclusion, but it's a nice exposition on money. So it's not that, you know, whatever. This is not what we are saying. We will continue to use money, and each year we will use more money for the various development projects that we used the previous year, because this will be one of the signs of our development. What we are saying, however, is that from now on, we shall know what is the foundation and what is the fruit of development. Between money and people, it is obvious that the people and their hard work are the foundation of development. And money is one of the fruits of that hard work. From now on, we shall stand upright and walk forward on our feet rather than look at this problem upside down. Industries will come and money will come, but their foundation is the people and their hard work, especially in agriculture. This is the meaning of self-reliance. Our emphasis should therefore be on A, the land and agriculture, B, the people. C, the policy of socialism and self-reliance. And D, good leadership. So good leadership is going to be like what we're talking about. So A, the land, because the economy of Tanzania depends and will continue to depend on agriculture and animal husbandry. Tanzanians can live well without depending on help from outside if they use their land properly. Land is the basis of human life, and all Tanzanians should use it as valuable investment for future development. Because the land belongs to the nation, the government has to see to it that it is used for the benefit of the whole nation and not for the benefit of one individual or just a few people. And so the question becomes, how do you know what's going to benefit the government? How are you going to know what's going to benefit the people the best? Like, again, with the trees situation, paper, or is it going to be sawdust, or is it going to be logs? Like what is going to be the benefit? Who decides that? Technically you would want it to be market driven, but technically, if it's the government doing it, like who's deciding? It is the responsibility of TANU to see that the country produces enough food and enough cash crops for export. It is the responsibility of the government and the cooperative society to see to it that our people get the necessary tools, training, and leadership in modern methods of agriculture. B, the people. So this is a good thing. Like this is like the Nyerere is like, again, like I said, top 3 of the 20th century. Okay, top 3. So make sure you guys check them out. The people, in order properly to implement the policy of self-reliance, the people have to be taught the meaning of self-reliance and its practice. They must become self-sufficient in food, serviceable clothes, and good housing. In our country, work should be something to be proud of, and laziness, drunkenness, and idleness should be things to be ashamed of. And for the defense of our nation, it is necessary for us to be on guard against internal stooges who could be used by external enemies who aim to destroy us. The people should always be ready to defend their nation when they are called upon to do so. So, all right, this is actually really interesting. Okay, so it should be something to be proud of. Laziness, drunkenness, and idleness. So, actually in traditional, like I said, there's the Congolese proverbs where they were like, you can be lazy, drunk, and idle. Like you can be, you're just not going to be a part of leadership. And I think that's something that just comes a little more realistic. So like just this idea that you're going to get rid of this stuff or shame this stuff is like, I don't know if that's so effective, but I do like that he's talking about internal stooges, because before I was like, this guy's all about that brotherhood. But he realizes, yeah, you know what? There are Askari. So he calls them internal stooges. I call them Askari, but it's just a good thing to see that, this brother is like, yo, some people is not, with it. Tanzan says, shall I list all the farm chores? Are you saying farm work is easy? Shit, I could do it. Tanzan says, I think you're saying that money is bad, but you still need it to do good for the people. Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, Tanzan. I could do it. Don't worry about it. You don't have to list it. I know I could do it. That sounds like a movie prompt, it's like, oh shit, this is actually pretty hard. Yeah, it's probably hard. Like all labor is hard. It's not like I'm gonna, it's not like I'm not gonna look at a janitor and be like, yo, your shit's too easy. You know what I mean? Like, obviously I wouldn't want to do a janitor's work anyway. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's like I wouldn't want to do it anyway. Like all labor is labor. I just don't know. I'm just saying that like in regard to like, if you're just timing their work and their work, like I said, like if I'm timing my parenting and I'm like, oh man, my kid keeps me busy all day. And then, like right now, I can't do that. But like, if he was like to go outside to the park and I was like there and like I could do something else, although I can't, but if I could do something else, then like I wouldn't count that into my parenting hours. You know what I mean? Otherwise I could, But anyway, so C, good policies. The principle of our policy of self-reliance go hand in hand with our policy on socialism. The principles of our policy of self-reliance go hand in hand with our policy on socialism. Okay. In order to prevent exploitation, it's necessary for everybody to work and to live on his own labor. And in order to distribute the national wealth fairly, it is necessary for everybody to work to the maximum of his ability. Nobody should go and stay for a long time with his relative doing no work, because in doing so, he will be exploiting his relative. Likewise, nobody should be allowed to loiter in towns or villages without doing work, which would enable him to be self-reliant without exploiting his relatives. Loiter in towns or village. Yeah, so that's the trouble. Like I said, when I was in Ghana, there was these people who were just idle AF. There was this guy every day I would walk outside. Now, I was obviously idle too, but like I was on vacation. This guy lives there. He was just, I mean, maybe he was on vacation. I don't know. But he was just sitting there all day on a chair in the shade on the side of the road every day. One point he did have a stand that seemed like he was selling SIM cards, but for the most part, but like it's like selling SIM cards where nobody is, like there's like no foot traffic. And it's the same, like there was like a lot of like rinky dink businesses that were selling things, but there was like no foot traffic, you know? So it's like a lot of it was just kind of like a lot of their labor was just like sitting there. It's like shopkeepers, like petty bourgeoisie shopkeepers. But like this guy was just idle. There was another lady who was just like straight up homeless. But she was like crazy. So it is what it is. But like in a real sense of like 10 million people, you're saying that nobody's going to be idle. Nobody's going to loiter. Nobody should have time to go stay with their family for a long time. Like, you know, it's just like you want to go from a realistic perspective, which is that, like, for instance, like me, I mean, I earn, like, I got my money, right? I got some money, and I said, let me go to freaking Africa and just chill. You know what I mean? And, like, to be like, what the fudge are you doing? Why are you chilling in another country? Like, what is wrong with you? You know? Like, it's like, ugh, come on, calm down, right? Anyway, so Tano believes that everybody who loves his nation has a duty to serve it by cooperating with his fellows in building the country for the benefit of all the people of Tanzania. In order to maintain our independence and our people's freedom, we ought to be self-reliant in every possible way and avoid depending upon other countries for assistance. And this is good. If every individual is self-reliant, the 10-house cell will be self-reliant. If all the cells are self-reliant, the whole ward will be self-reliant. And if the wards are self-reliant, the district will be self-reliant. If the districts are self-reliant, then the region is self-reliant. And if the regions are self-reliant, then the whole nation is self-reliant. And this is our aim. So again, like you kind of see, he's talking about 10-house cells. So like there's 10 houses working, like an individual is inside of a 10-house cell, and all these cells are in a ward, and all of these wards are in a district, and all these districts are in a region, and all the regions are in the nation. So that's pretty interesting. And then last but not least, good leadership. Tano recognizes the urgency and importance of good leadership, but we have not yet produced systematic training for our leaders. So that's what you want to do. This is the kind of like my, you know, when I write in the Book of Power about how to like get Africa out, like we do need systematic training for our leaders. It doesn't say that TANU headquarters should now prepare a program of training for all leaders from the national level to the 10-house cell level so that every one of them understands our political and economic policies. Leaders must set a good example to the rest of the people in their lives and in all their activities. So like the training of leaders is realistically one of the most important things we can do as a people. So let's go on. Bit of medicine. Oh, Tanzan didn't get mad at me. So bit of medicine says the amount of farm work depends on the size of the farm. Yeah. Shakara says, when I first read this, I was struck by the challenge those generation had in terms of developing while trying to stave off neocolonialism. I don't envy their position at all. Yeah, exactly. Shakara is very right about that. You know, like they had a challenge. Like for instance, we are kind of sitting down. Well, at least me. I'm sitting down in the Western world, like pretty idle. No cap. But you know, like pretty much like relative vacation compared to as Tanzan would say, the farmer. You know, the farmer is working from 5 to 6:30, and you know I'm like legit sitting down reading a book for 2 hours today so far. Trigger Happy says so yeah, like they're in a different position and like they did what they needed to do. And so it's just realistically like we have to pass the baton. So like my intention is of course to get to Africa and do stuff, although I'm not going to be on no freaking farm. But I mean, I hope I'm not. I mean, maybe if I get a farm I could, but hopefully not. But like Bitter Medicine said, like this depends on like how big your farm is, you know? And like how much you're trying to accomplish on that farm. If you're trying to accomplish quite a bit on that farm with like no help, then sure, you're going to be working your ass off. But if you're like, you know, if you have like a whole team of people, if you're paying other people to do the work. But of course, it looks like he's saying don't pay other people to do the work, which is like really hard. And of course, like he says, like the 10 house cells. So he tried those projects and he like realized that like it was like a fail. You know what I mean? Anyway, so Trigger Happy says got to counter it, but at least he admits to it. He's like, oh yeah, we tried to like run their lives in their in little villages, and like it didn't work out, and it was my mistake, my bad, you know. So that's the thing. And so part 4, TANU membership. Since the party was founded, we have put great emphasis on getting as many members as possible. This was the right policy during the independence struggle. But now the national executive feels that the time has come when we should put more emphasis on the beliefs of our party and its policies of socialism. Okay, but now the national feels at the time. Okay, so that part of the TANU constitution relates to the admission of a member should be adhered to, and if it is discovered that a man does not appear to accept the faith, the objects, and the rules and regulations of the party, that he should not be accepted as a member. In particular, it should not be forgotten that TANU is a party of peasants and workers. So he's like, look, once upon a time we wanted as many members as possible, but now we're kind of like, everybody needs to be a socialist, you know? So Oni, you might sound cool, but you don't sound like a socialist, you know? You know, to get the fuck out of our party. All right. Therefore, the National Executive Committee meeting in the community center at Arusha from January 26, 1967 to January 29 to 1967. So there's the community center at Arusha. Community centers are very important, by the way. Like that was like, originally that was the thing I wanted to build in America right, first. Now I kind of want to build it in Africa, but still. A, the leadership. 1. Every TANU and government leader must be either a peasant or a worker and should in no way be associated with the practice of capitalism or feudalism. So that means that if I were to go to Africa and I'm not a worker or a peasant, because I definitely wouldn't be going to Africa to be a peasant. But maybe I would. I don't know. I mean, like if it's like a gun to my head, sure, why not? But like basically, it's like, yo, you would not have a leadership position unless you're a peasant or worker. Now that's kind of a good practice, but kind of also not, because a lot of people are not trying to be peasants and workers. You know, yeah. All right, so number 2, no TANU or government leader should hold shares in any company. Like, damn, okay? It means you don't make any profit. Any profit outside of, you know, like, it's just... All right, no TANU or government leader should hold directorship in any privately owned enterprise. This is tough. I'm telling you guys. No TANU or government leader should receive 2 or more salaries. So basically, like what? Like, so here's the thing. So like what? Oh gosh. All right. So this is tough. This is tough because like it's not really tough, but what I mean is that like here in America, multiple streams of income is like the goal, you know. But of course, like we're broke in America without it. So it's just like, you know, going to Africa. Like let's say you go to Africa with a bag. They're like, nope, that bag, you can't do anything with it. Put it back, you know? So it's a little bit harder. No TANU or government leader should own houses which he rents to others. Yikes. For the purpose of this resolution, the term leader, but again, like it depends on the economy. If the economy could suit you, then sure, you know, but like for most people in America right now, or Latin America, but like just most people in these capitalist economies right now, it's just kind of like, yeah, you know? Like, I would rather own houses and rent to people. I'd rather receive more than one income. I'd rather hold like a directorship in a private businesses. I'd rather hold shares and shit, boy. You know, don't want to be a peasant, right? Now again, like if life is good there, then it's good. You know, I would still do it. I'm just saying, like that sounds like a lot. You know, like it's a big ask. Like obviously he's not in the West, so he doesn't know that people in the West are just like, what? You know, but, you know, people nowadays are just like, especially now, like multiple incomes is like the thing, you know? Like part of me like wanting to sell this book. So if you guys don't know, I have this book. Part of me wanting to sell this book is like, yeah, I would like a separate income while I'm in Africa, just in case, you know? You know what I mean? All right, so for the purpose of this resolution, the term leader should comprise the following: members of the TANU National Executive Committee, ministers, members of parliament, senior officials of organization affiliated to TANU, senior officials of para-statal government organizations, all as appointed or elected under any clause of the TANU Constitution, councillors, and civil servants in the high and middle cadres. In this context, leader means man or a man and his wife, a woman or a woman and her husband. Basically, you know, it could mean it's not gendered, right? So he says a leader is a member. So, so he says a government leader. He was saying that those are basically the TANU National Executive Committees, the members of parliament, all the people associated with TANU. Like none of them should have any sort of private ownership, which is a lot. So we're about to go to we're almost finished. And look at the next chapter. Socialism is not racialism. Fudge. Like he like just beyond all doubt. You're like, maybe he's okay with it. Nope. All right. Maybe he's okay with a little racialism. He's just not saying it. Nope. Trigger Happy says, damn, my comment didn't show up again. Colonial entities have better training of African-backed leaders. Whole military schools got to counter it. That's what I was trying to say. Oh, I see. His comment didn't come through. That's so stupid. What is with this thing? Let me see. If I go to live chat, does it show anything? Yeah, okay, now it shows. You wrote down, our enemies have better training of African traders. So like, by the way, fam, if you see your comments are not working, you just press live chat instead of top chat. So they say some messages such as potential spam might not be visible, but then live chat is kind of like, I think it's gonna show everything. I'm not 100% sure, but usually it shows more. Our enemies have better training of African traders. Yeah, definitely. So we got to counter it. He says, damn, my counter didn't show again. Colonial, but I don't know if it showed on the podcast, which is weird. But colonial entities have better training of African-backed leaders. Whole military schools got to counter it. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, definitely. And does it show on the screen? No, it doesn't show on the screen. So it's garbage. But, like I said, if you ever see that our comments are not showing, just let us know, and then we could all like switch to live chat, or at least I could switch to live chat so I could read it. Appreciate it. So basically don't. Yeah, no, actually no, it's okay. So the government and other institutions. So congratulates the government for the steps it has taken so far in the implementation of the policy of socialism. 2, calls upon the government to take further steps in the implementation of our policy of socialism as described in Part 2 of this document without waiting for the Presidential Commission on Socialism. 3, calls upon the government to put emphasis when preparing its development plan on the ability of the country to implement the plans rather than depending on foreign loans and grants as has been done in the current 5-year development plan. The National Executive Committee also resolves that the plan should be amended so as to make it fit with the policy of self-reliance. So again, like he's really forcing the socialism down. And it comes to, like, again, you're going to read him. He's going to say, like I said, you look at the Book of Power. We're going to talk about it, right? But he does. Well, I mentioned his quote where he says, yeah, I might have been forcing that shit. You know what I mean? I don't know what it says off the top of my head, but you guys know what I'm saying. I kind of want to bring it up, but I don't. All right, so number 4, called upon the government to take action designed to ensure that the income of workers in the private sector are not very different from the income of workers in the public sector. So again, like, why not? 5, calls upon the government to put great emphasis on actions which will raise the standard of living of the peasants and the rural community. And I agree with that, obviously. And 6, calls upon NUTA and Cooperative, TAPAD, UT, and TIL, and other government institutions to take steps to implement the policy of socialism and self-reliance. So, and C, finally, members should get thorough teaching on party ideology so that they may understand it, and they should always be reminded of the importance of living up to its principles. Right, so you want the party to understand the ideology, and then you want to make sure they live up to it. Now, this is a problem. Like I said, you want to be really in depth and really explain and really understand why you're taking down a fence. Like, why is it that you do not want some workers getting more money than other workers? Like, why do you not want that is the question. Like, it's okay to want people to have a certain amount of income for themselves, but it's another thing to say, well, I think the surgeon shouldn't get more money than the janitor. Nothing against the janitor, but it's just like, why not? So Shakara says the government, the no government official having directorship in private companies is an anti-corruption policy. Garvey, UNIA, ACL had a similar policy. Private companies is an anti-corruption. Okay, so shit, if Garvey had it, shit. You know what I'm saying? like you know what I'm saying? All right, fam. So while we have more comments, I'm going to remind you guys that not just that I'm part of the KW's Radio Network, but also that I have this Book of Power. So make sure you guys check that out as well. I'll be looking at the rest of the comments as they're coming in. Just going to put that in the background for those of you who do not know. Yeah, let me see what Shakara is saying about the private ownership. Yeah, I mean, let me see. Private companies. The only thing is this. So this is the reason why I'm talking about the private companies is this. Like, let's say I have extra money. What should I do with it? What do I want to do with it? So I remember, like, for instance, after my mother passed away, right? She like left us money, her son's money. And so all of us had different things to do with the money. One of my brothers was like, shit, let me go get like, let me pay for some of a car. Another brother was like, let me pay for some of a house. I was kind of like, shit, I don't have a car and I already live in a house, I guess. So let me just invest it. And my other brother was like, let me buy drugs. You get what I'm saying? So like the like it's just like, let me just freaking buy drugs. So and I mean like not to say that my other brothers didn't buy drugs either. The one who got the house, like, you know, after my mother passed away, he was really like, everybody handles the death of other people in different ways. And for those of you who never lost a parent, it's like really, really hard. So how you grieve is going to be how you grieve. So everybody, like our other brother did buy alcohol too, right? Not like hard drugs, as far as I know. But although maybe, I don't know. I'm not like, I didn't stalk him. But yeah, like the question is like, what do you do with your money? And so it becomes, well, can I risk my money in hope of profit? And if the question is no, you can't even do that, then it's like, well, so what am I supposed to do with the money? You know, I mean, you could be like, and that's what I'm saying. Like if you're like, oh, you can't even invest, like, can you invest it in your own community? Or do you just not get the money? You know what I mean? Because like if you're investing, then you're going to probably own shares, right? And if you're not investing, if you're not owning shares, then are you just, okay, here's some money. Like you just go into somebody else's farm and giving them money, right? With nothing, like nothing to get back from it, you know? Like that's really like the question there. So it's like, I get the whole, you know, oh, you don't want them inside of a company where they're like influencing it while being a politician. And I mean, that's the thing. So it's like, yeah, no government official. So like if you're a government official and you're like, okay, I'm going to invest in this tire shop and then I'm going to give them the tire shop government contracts. That'll clearly benefit my investment and that could be seen as corrupt. Sure. I mean, I could see that too. So it's like, maybe it doesn't apply to somebody who's not in that position, but then it really comes back to, well, what if I do have money as a government official? Should I, should I just not, like, what do I do exactly? What do I do with money? So Tanzan is agreeing. She's like, government officials shouldn't be in business. They will use their power for profit, right? Yeah. So basically, what should they do? You know, and that's what I'm saying. Like another thing about it too is that, you know, so some people are like, hey, look, in order for Africa to like really expand, we need good leadership in government, you know? But then if you want good leadership in government, should the government not also be good with business? And if they are good with business, should they forfeit all of their business, and to what end? You know, because another thing with regard to government, I want to say this, you know, is that it's not eternal. You know, the government is not eternal. You don't always have a government job. So what I mean by that is, how do I say this? So you don't always have a government job. Oh yeah. So like, here's what happened with this guy, Mike Pence. So Mike Pence was the vice president of America, right? He was originally the governor in America, and then he was called upon by Trump to become the vice president under him. After they lost the presidency, right? Mike Pence lost his house. Like he was living in the governor's mansion. He lost his home, and he basically was like homeless, you know? And because he was like hated afterwards, he was rejected. Like he couldn't just like go and work at Starbucks. You know what I mean? He's freaking Mike Pence. Like he was like the reviled vice president. So it's like, should he, like, because he probably didn't have any business interests outside of politics, right? So like, what grown adult, knowing that their time in government is limited, should have no contingency plan after government? Now, what Nyerere is outlining is, well, we will provide for you, notwithstanding, you know, like we will provide for you after your political career is over, right? But again, like, to what extent is that even true? You know what I mean? Like, to what extent can you rely upon, like, you know, we talk about self-reliance, to what extent can you rely upon other people to hold you in your time of need, right? Nah, Tanzan, no, not like if poor Pence like clap, like shake, like clap your hands, freaking Mike Pence. Anyway, like yes, poor Pence, because like see Donald Trump, like he kept his businesses and now he's still a billionaire. Well, like the idea is that if he gave up on his business, like if he just sold all his businesses, went into presidency, and then got kicked the fuck out, like what would happen to him? You know what I mean? Like again, like if you're, not to say that you would be a bad politician, but if people just don't agree with you, because the thing with but Trump, a lot of people will tell you, like I hear this all the time. They're like, this guy didn't even do any of that imperialist shit. Like he legit just like he was a bigot, but he didn't really like do anything that like I don't know. I don't really follow him. I just like tuned the fuck out because I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm not gonna hold you guys. I was like pretty good. Like I was pretty happy he left. Like I was just like, this motherfucker's just crazy. I don't like crazy. I don't like stupid. He was both. But like a lot of people are like, he wasn't that bad. So it's not like you're going to get politically chastised if you're not that bad, because like they were literally going to lock him up. They were literally going to put him in prison. But he's like a billionaire now. Like if he wasn't a billionaire, like what would happen? But I would say this for Dessalines. What happened with Dessalines is that he had in the Constitution of Haiti that he had in the Constitution that he would be protected after no, we didn't get the sarcasm, sis. All right, but he had in the Constitution that after he died, his wife would be taken care of and his son would be taken care of. Like his son would be able to join the military and become a higher rank than a soldier, right? They just killed Dessalines. They didn't care to protect him over time. It's like you have no real political protection. So this idea that, hey, you know what, you should just depend on the government. Like what if the government just changes? What if your political party becomes hated? You know? Like what if? Like you have to prepare for your political, like you have to prepare for your future as an individual, because if you don't, like you'll just end up like Mike Pence, where it's like, hey, you know, we're on cloud nine, psych, you know, because like maybe it's possible. I don't know. I don't really know Mike Pence. So he could have been an honest politician, like an honest Republican, but an honest politician. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't into that corruption shit. Who knows? And whereas Donald Trump was, but like he could have been, and then he just like lose everything. He's like living with his friend or some shit, you know, like nobody gives a shit about him. Nobody's going to hire him. He's a freaking, you know, and so, yeah, like, and it's not that you would plan on having a negative reaction, but you should understand that in real life, like things don't always go your way. And the way how it was with Dessalines, who was like doing everything right, and they just gut him and kill him. It's like, yeah, you know, like, you know, it'd be better if you had your own shit, you know? Trigger Happy says, wouldn't that be a problem of the party not doing what it's supposed to do? Or, yeah, but that's the thing. Like, how is the party going to do what it's supposed to? Like, is the TANU even still in government right now? Like, how long is the TANU going to be in government? You get what I'm saying? Like, how long is it going to be in government? Like, the ANC, how long is, like, the EFF comes into power? Is it going to keep up the ANC's policies? You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, you could put all your eggs in one basket and, like, do everything for the ANC, but when it gets out of power, you're effed, because you now have no businesses, you made no profit, and the whole country is going against your belief system. You know, I mean, it's possible TANU is still in power. I don't want to just blindly search for it, but like it's also possible that it's not. And so, yeah, like you said, maybe the party didn't do what it's supposed to do, but that's also real life, that your party is probably not going to be in power for another 500 years, you know? And it's not that you want to like live off of depending on that, but it's just a reality, you know, just a reality of the world. Actually, somebody could look up if TANU is still in power. Let me see. They have CCM, not TANU. Yeah, there you go. Tanzan saying, yeah, they have CCM. So maybe that's still another thing, but like, does it have the same policy? Like, again, if TANU is looking out for your well-being and it's no longer a party, then the CCM now look out for your well-being. Like, I mean, I don't know if they're the counterparty to TANU if they ran against TANU. But if they did run against TANU, then it's like, and that's actually what happened in Jamaica. So like I told you guys a story. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, so I'm gonna try to. But what happened in Jamaica is that there's like people are killing each other over the political differences. The political parties, however, I realized my dad was telling me the story about them. Chama Cha Mapinduzi, the Party of Change. So my dad's telling me about the story, and basically one of them sounds like they're pro-Western, and the other one's talking about they're like pro, like one of them's pro-capitalism, one's pro-communism. Jamaicans are on the streets killing each other. Why? Because depending on what political party's in power, the government, like they basically get money from the state. You know what I'm saying? And basically their neighborhood profits, and when the neighborhood is not in power, the neighborhood doesn't profit. So the reality is that if all of your eggs are in the basket of you having political power, when obviously political power is tenable, right? Then, you know, you can do that, like you're a real loyal and faithful individual, but the reality is that chances are you're going to get screwed over. Like in real life, when you live for I want to say like 6-7 decades, and political parties usually don't, you know, or if they do, they kind of change a lot to the point where like the Democratic Party of today is not like the Democratic Party of even 10 years ago, honestly, but even like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's not even the same political party with the same political beliefs, that they always backtrack and they always change their policies. So yeah, I mean, it is an anti-corruption measure, but it is, but like to the extent, but like why that corruption exists is because in real life you have to deal with the reality that that your economic fate is not guaranteed from, or your political power is not guaranteed, right? So anyway, so EL says if the government is in financial power like in Sri Lanka, that would put the politicians at risk financially. Yeah, exactly. There's like, exactly. And if the government, like, there's a lot of reasons to have your own treasure chest. There's a lot of reasons to do that. And if you give up on that, then essentially, like, you might have all your eggs in one basket, but that could screw you over. But anyway, that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't want to take up all your time. We have a celebrity. We have Shaka Ra, so we can't, you know, monopolize the time. So anyway, well, thanks so much, everybody. Not that Shaka Ra is more important than anybody, because he wouldn't tell you that. He wouldn't tell you that. But he is. No, I'm joking. Well, no, I'm just joking with you guys. Everybody's good people. So thanks everybody for coming through. Let me just read through the list so that you guys don't think. Tanzan was here. Tanzan heard me singing, so appreciate Tanzan for that. Bobby E. Wright. So you guys could actually rewind. The first thing I start off is the Ujamaa song. But Tanzan, Bobby E. Wright was here. Trigger Happy here as well. Bitter Medicine. Make sure you guys check out Bitter Medicine on KW's Radio. He's on Saturdays in the evening, so make sure you guys check him out. Tanzan was here. Trigger Happy. Okay, so that Shaka Ra's here. Shaka Ra. EL was here as well. And I think that's pretty much the end of it. Yeah. And then let's see. Tanzan says same thing in Kenya. When your party's in power, you're eating well. Exactly. But then like, would you put all your eggs into the political party? No. And if you do, that's fine, but you're gonna get screwed over. All right, so fam, that's pretty much it. Make sure you guys check out the Book of Power. Make sure you guys check out KW's Radio Network and all that. And then maybe tomorrow. But in other words, thanks for stopping by. Shem Hotep, Anku Ja Seneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua Netcher.